All right, the meeting of the General Laws and Technology Committee will come to order. Could the clerk call the roll?
Where do you hit? What button do you hit? Oh. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Chairman's here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, mine's not working.
Yeah, we need some help.
I think you got a
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure you know I'm here, and I was going to give my proxy to Senator Hashmi.
All right. Yeah. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. First, I will call on Senator Ruff to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we carry by House Bill 2029 until next week? This could affect a couple thousand forest product company employees directly, and they want a little time to look at that bill and see if it can't be addressed a little bit better.
All right. I think there was going to be an amendment to that bill, but I will, without objection, we will pass it by for the day. All right. Then we do have a request from Delegate Simon, who will be chairing a committee on the House side shortly. So Delegate Simon, are you available to present your bill 2229?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm available. Can you all hear me and see me okay?
Well, we hear you fine, and I'm not going to comment on your looks, but...
Thank you, and I appreciate that, actually. Nothing is better than what you probably would have said. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I have got House Bill 2229 today. This is a bill that provides that if a home is used as a single-family residence and is foreclosed on, and there's a tenant in the dwelling unit on the date of the foreclosure sale, the person who takes over is going to have to honor that lease if they are purchasing the property as an investor and intending to buy it as an investment property. If they intend to buy it and make it their own home at foreclosure sale, and there's an existing tenant, then they have to give the existing tenant up to 90 days written notice before they can evict them from the property and take it over as their primary residence. The impetus behind this bill is to conform Virginia law to federal law now. So by doing this, we get in line with federal law. This is a bill that came to me at the request of the Virginia Realtors. I think that's the support of the Realtor Association and some other stakeholder groups. So I hope you the pleasure of the Senate to report this bill favorably.
All right. Are there anybody have questions of the patron? Anybody have any comments on the bill?
Just
All right. We have a motion and a second to report. Are there any people to testify on this bill?
if so, please raise your hand.
None? Okay. Okay, we have no testimony. Is there any further discussion on the bill? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no 0, 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. Your bill is reported, Delegate Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Talk to you soon.
All right. Okay, let's deal next with the House bills that have an identical Senate bill, which include House Bill 1816, House Bill 1943, and House Bill 2175. Are there any patrons that wish to say anything on any of those bills? Bulova, Willett, and Torian. Those are the three patrons.
Mr. Chairman, you said they were identical. Were there negative votes on any of the three?
There was one of the three. Two of them were 39 to 0. Well, actually, all three of them were 39 to 0. One of them had an abstention in committee, but passed unanimously on the floor. So all three of them were 39-0 votes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, move to report.
Second.
Can we vote in all three bills as a block here? All right, we have a motion and a second to report these three bills. If there's any questions, unless there's any questions, we will proceed to the vote. Board's open.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right, 15-0 on those three. All right, we have two bills that are similar but not identical, and it would appear to be reasonable to, in effect, have these two bills conform to the Senate versions. First one is 2161 from Delegate Tran, dealing with active military or military spouses, prohibits discrimination in public accommodations, and it is similar to Senate Bill 1410 from Senator Bell. Do you want to have a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I actually would ask that we keep this bill the same. I've spoken with the stakeholders, and there's peace in the valley, so I'm going to actually have them conform my bill to this bill.
All right. You want to withdraw your motion to conform? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I can explain to the committee. There was a portion about waiving basically the Soldiers Sailors Relief Act,
Right.
and now they all the stakeholders have communicated they no longer have any problem with that. So I think we have peace in the valley. So with that, I'll move to report.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? All right. Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right, and then the other bill that was similar is House Bill 2320 from Delegate Converse Fowler, dealing with Virginia Residential Property Disclosure Act on related to repetitive risk loss structure for flood risk information. This is similar to Senate Bill 1389 from Senator Lewis, which passed 39-0 in the Senate.
Conform to Senate Bill 1388?
1389. You were close. You were close.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
You know, it would have been a cat bill, but or maybe it got the wrong Lewis bill in there. But that's right. That's right. So anyway, we now have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All right. Any discussion or questions? All right. Let's vote on the board.
Pardon me, that'll be the adoption of amendment in nature of a substitute.
Okay, well, let's do a voice vote on amending it, on the amendment to make this a substitute for the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, we have the amendment in the nature of substitute, and we already have a motion to report and second on that. So, yeah. All right. Vote yes.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right. Now we'll deal with the remaining bills.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I spoke with Sir McClellan spoke with me, and SB 1310, which was the Domestic Workers Domestic Service Human Rights Act. The bill that's from Delegate Price, lines 12 through 152 are identical. And there was some changes made in her bill, but
Wait. What bill are you talking about?
this is Delegate Price's 1864 is identical to.
We don't have 18. Wait a second. Yeah, 1864. Okay. Well, let's deal with that when we get to it. Let's go through in order here. First bill to call up is House Bill 1811. Delegate Helmer, is he available?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, Mr. Chair, am I recognized to speak to the bill?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, members of the committee, HB 1811 is a bill designed to save the Commonwealth and localities money on life cycle costs of certain products. Energy efficient and water efficient products have saved federal and state governments billions of dollars. DGS already requires state agency to purchase Energy Star products, while VITA, which does our technology purchasing, recommends such procurements. This bill is a product of the input of the Virginia Association of Government Purchasing, which worked with us on it, although they're not opposed. But Advanced Energy Economy, Maryland, DC, Virginia Solar Energy Industries Association, and others. And while DGS has no position, we thank them for their insight. Bottom line is the bill just simply says that if there are 2 or more Energy Star or WaterSense products, that localities in the Commonwealth must purchase among them, aligning us with policy in the federal government and many of the other states. Look forward to your questions.
All right, are there any questions from the committee? All right, is there anyone who wants to speak on this bill?
If so, please raise your hand.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Reeves.
Senator Reeves.
Question for Delegate Helmer.
Sure.
Delegate Helmer, this just says they may choose from those 2. They have that option. They don't have to choose. They may if at their discretion. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator. This is not a discretionary bill. So if there are 2, they must choose from among them. So it's non-discretionary in that sense. However, the reason that there is a 2 clause is to ensure there's competition, so our smaller localities aren't being ripped off. But it is not discretionary. It is a requirement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Is there anybody to speak?
Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
nobody to speak on this bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Donovan.
Thank you. I'm just wanted to follow up with the patron. I have a question from my locality that they are uncertain that a locality could reject all bids on cost grounds if 2 or more bidders offered certified goods. They're concerned about it does not provide for a consideration of the relative costs of certified and non-certified goods. They feel like this is a challenge for them. Can you answer that question about whether it covers certified and non-certified and if they could reject an offer?
Mr. Chair, may I answer the senator?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator that already, so I understand and have heard the locality's concerns. I will note that, yes, it would. So if you put out a bid, and the very direct answer is if you put out a bid and there were 3 solicitations, 2 of which were among certified providers, 1 of which was not, then you could only consider among the 2 certified providers. I will say that this is more permissive than exists throughout much of other states and the federal government, and that they've just put a mandate that you must only solicit from among those. So we're giving localities more flexibility than exists in many other places in a way that has been shown to be pound, it prevents penny wise but pound foolish behavior. But it is in fact a mandate, and the interpretation by your locality is correct. What I would offer is that while that is correct, what we have seen both at the Commonwealth level and among the feds is that this is a money saving measure, not one that will cost your localities money.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Donovan.
I just am not sure why we are directing these limits to the localities and not allowing them to discern for themselves. What problem are we seeking to solve here? Because it seems we're creating some problems in the process, and I always want to be careful about unintended consequences. So what major issue are we seeking to solve with this that is necessary that we pass new legislation?
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
Mr. Chair, I would answer the senator. There's 2 components, 2 problems that this is trying to solve. Problem 1 is an overall issue of using less environmentally sound products when they are available. And number 2 is a cost issue where total life cycle cost is often not taken into account in the procurement of these goods and has been shown to be a relevant measure and one in which localities and the state save money. In fact, when we trialed this a decade ago, at the Commonwealth level with DGS for a year or two, DGS decided to keep this policy in place rather than remove it because it was saving the Commonwealth extensively. While that said, I would accept as a friendly amendment. I've seen a clause before that says where something to the effect of where it's not, where cost is cited as a factor, you will look at the life cycle cost versus the purchase cost. But I would offer that would be possible, and I also don't think it's needed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
follow-up
Senator
question.
Donovan.
I'm really not trying to die on this hill. I'm just trying to figure it out and advocate for my locality. But if this is already the policy in Virginia, why do we need to codify it and implement this in the localities?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator that this is the policy of DGS for the Energy Star certified products. And it's a mandate, for DGS, it's a mandate. For VITA, it is a recommendation. We are extending a more permissive, it is very cost effective, but something that oftentimes local government procurement agents don't know about. And so by extending this as a requirement in the code, we are going to be extending the benefits that we're already seeing at the Commonwealth level to the localities, both environmentally and in terms of cost. So that's why we need it in the code, because it's only a Commonwealth policy, not a locality policy, and only for DGS.
All right, any further questions or comments? Is there anyone to speak on this issue? No, this is a no. All right, all right, we have a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I'd like to understand the consequence of that amendment. Would it give more permissibility to the localities?
Which amendment are you talking about?
The amendment offered by the patron,
Patron,
Delegate Helmer?
Yes, I understand it. It would provide more flexibility to the localities. I mean, it would provide more information to help them in making a decision, so.
I'm sorry, it would or would not provide more information?
It would provide more information and would provide, I guess, an indication that the life cycle costs were less than the alternatives that were where their bids were received.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Would it be okay to just to follow up with one quick answer to that?
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator. It could give more flexibility. It comes with a little bit of a trade-off. It does mean that like the administrative overhead of dealing with these would be potentially greater, right? Because now you're saying instead of, hey, look, just buy from among these products, which is what everybody else is doing. You're saying, hey, buy it from among these products. But if you decide not to and cite cost as a factor, you need to provide a written justification that the life cycle cost would have been less of the other. So it just adds it does add significant burden, even while it provides some options. So that's the trade-off you'd be putting in there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, question for the patron.
Yes. Senator Bell.
If you could, how common are the Energy Star certifications here? I mean, are most of the bids Energy Star or most of them not? How rare is it?
Mr. Chair, I would answer the senator that I can't tell you how many, it's like a super broad question, how many products are Energy Star? The answer is there is a tremendous amount of choice, and having a requirement and mandate has not provided any inhibition from the Commonwealth for DGS or the federal government from acquiring products they need at a good price. So it is quite extensive, the amount of product and variability out there. For instance, every HP product is Energy Star certified.
Mr. Chair, further question?
Senator Bell.
Given the concern with localities, and if I'm getting this right, you're primarily wanting this to be with DGS, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I'd answer the senator, no, I'm not looking for this primarily to be DGS. I'm looking for this to be we're extending something that DGS has done across all purchasing in the Commonwealth, both at the locality and the state level.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Bell.
would you consider it a friendly amendment if you said required for Virginia agencies and encouraged for other localities?
Mr. Chair, if that's the will of the committee to move the board, move this forward, of course, I would accept that.
Second the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, then I move that amendment. I think that alleviates any local concerns.
Speaking to the amendment.
We have a motion and a second on an amendment. Yes.
Speaking to the amendment, I mean, as I would read that amendment, I would see it as sort of undermining and gutting the bill. And the intent is applied under 4328.1 as proposed. It really does apply to local governments. As my read through the section, it would exclude higher education. There's certain other exclusions under that section. And so essentially the amendment would really put the bill in a moot position.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, Senator Donovan.
I don't think that's true. I think if on the merits of this policy, it is valuable for adoption in its cost effectiveness, that giving the localities the kind of heads up that this is preferential and that they should be looking at this, it works. But where there are untoward exceptions in some of these bids, it's the forcing of the bid, I think, that's so challenging. So I think if this was good enough that the state picked it up as policy even after a trial, that the localities will too, but it gives them a little bit of flexibility with respect for how they procure.
All right, is there any further discussion or questions on the proposed amendment? All right, be a voice vote for the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No. All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 8, no 7.
All right, the amendment is adopted. All right.
Move to report as
We
amended.
have a motion to report as amended. And that motion is seconded. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 1, 2 abstentions.
All right, the bill is reported. All right, next we have House Bill 1812 from Delegate Krizak. Is he on the line now? I guess apparently not. I think he had a committee meeting. All right, the next bill is 1824 from Delegate Askew. Is he on the line? All right, Delegate Askew, you're up next.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this bill requires that the owner of a residential dwelling who has actual knowledge of the existence of mold inside such dwelling to provide a written disclosure to such a purchaser. This adds language to the buyer beware form, which is required to be given to every buyer in Virginia relating to mold in a home. The language also provides consumer protections about advising said buyer to use their due diligence to determine whether property has mold issue in the home. Mr. Chair, I hope this pleasure of the committee to move this bill along.
All right, are there any questions of the patron?
Well, not of the patron, but I'm curious if the realtors have a position on this.
Well, you could ask the patron that. He might know.
Okay, I'll ask the patron if the realtors have weighed in.
Mr. Chair, I would say to the senator that yes, I've worked with them throughout the whole process, and actually they suggested amendments that we took up in the committee process in the House.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Bill.
I think if I can ask the patron to verify this, I think this just is added to the list of disclosures on the website. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, I would say to the senator, yes, on the website and whether it's printed for the buyer rate. Yes, sir.
With that, I move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll vote on the bill. Is there anybody to testify on this? We do have one to testify. Let's make sure we have the testimony here. So,
Chip Dix, please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Chip Dix on behalf of the realtors, and we appreciate working with Ask You, and we support the bill.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, if there's no one else to speak, then we will vote on the board now.
Ayes 15, no 0.
All right. Next, we have House Bill 1830 from Delegate Head. Is he?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
All right, good. Please proceed. Present your bill.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. House Bill 1830 is brought to us as a part of a recommendation from JLARC, who did a study. Also was presented to the Small Business Commission, which I serve on. And the recommendation was for the Small Business Financing Authority to change the makeup of that committee as a requirement to allow for membership to have some small business financing experience as a prerequisite for being appointed to that committee. This authority is tasked with awarding grants and helping with financing for small businesses. And in the past, there has been funds that were allocated and appropriated that simply weren't awarded. And when JLARC did the investigation, the primary reason was a lack of comfort with determining what is a viable business, or really understanding small business lending on the part of the members of the authority. And so JLARC made the recommendation that we change that, and the bill would not remove anyone existing from the authority as it stands now, but just going forward as people rotate off by attrition, that in order to be coming back on, they would need to be able to have some sort of small business financing authority or experience before they were able to be members of this authority. And so that's the bill. Pretty straightforward, and appreciate the committee's consideration.
All right, just so everybody is aware, this is an 11-member board which has the state treasurer or designee, the director of the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity, and 9 citizens. And of those 9 citizens, with this bill, 5 of those 9 would have to have this experience in small business lending. Any questions anyone has of the patron?
I would move to report at the appropriate time.
All right, was there anybody to speak on this bill?
If you'd like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand.
Who keeps saying no?
All right, we have a motion and a second. I assume there's nobody to speak? Okay, all right. All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay. All right, that bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right, next let's go back to Delegate Kryzak, who is on the phone, or on the Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yep, I've been Zooming between 3 different committees, like many of my colleagues in both bodies are today. 1812 addresses 10 technical amendments to the casino statute, the casino bill, which we passed last year. It's really a testament to this thorough job of this committee and others that we have so few technical amendments, voluminous casino bill. So I can just go through them really quickly. Number 1, the Virginia Lottery requested clarification as to the confidentiality of actions taken to suspend or revoke licenses or permits. 2, the bill corrects an oversight regarding sports betting and brick and mortar casinos. The sports betting bill from last year provides that sports betting can only be on a sports betting application. This bill here will create a definition of a sports betting facility to enable in-person sports betting at a sports betting facility, meaning in person at a casino. It also, number 3, it enables Virginia Lottery to obtain the information necessary to authorize on-premise mobile casino gaming. 4, it enables Virginia Lottery to rely on information submitted as part of the sports betting applications when processing casino applications, thus reducing redundancy. 5, it clarifies that the $300 million capital investment plan remains in place, and only after a casino license is issued can Virginia Lottery authorize temporary operation. 6, it enables Virginia Lottery to promulgate regulations for the issuance and renewal of supplier permits. 7, it clarifies that in-person sports bets made in person at a sports betting facility in the casino may be made in cash. And 8, it retains the same tax rates for casino gaming and for sports betting, whether done on the sports betting application or at the sports betting facility. And 9, it provides for a quarterly distribution of casino gaming taxes to the localities. And then the one that's is not as technical, but it was a floor amendment, which is very important, I think, and I'll read it exactly. The bill requires applicants for operators licenses to submit a minority investment plan disclosing any equity interest owned by a minority individual or minority-owned business, or the applicant's efforts to seek equity investment from minority individuals or minority-owned businesses. And 3, a plan for the participation of minority individuals or minority-owned businesses in the applicant's purchase of goods and services related to the casino gaming establishment. Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Scott Johnson and John Garrett Kemper have signed up to speak for the casinos if you have any questions.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Ruff.
Senator Pike, didn't you have a bill that was supposed to clean it up? Are these in conflict?
Mr. Chairman, they are not. They're similar in terms of the sports betting bill that are picked up also in the casino language in terms of kiosk and other things that were intended in last year's bill. Both the sports bill that myself and Sickles are carrying as well as this vehicle clean all of those items up.
All right. Senator Eben.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to ask one of the witnesses, when Delegate Krizak referred to a sports betting location that's exclusive to being in a casino or affiliated with a casino, is that right?
All right. Is there someone who can answer that question?
Mr. Chairman, this is Scott Johnson. I'm glad to answer that if you would like.
Certainly. Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Johnson, I represent the Hard Rock Bristol Casino. To Senator Evans' question, we created in here, as did Senator McPike in his bill, a definition of a sports betting facility, and that is limited to sports betting that's taking place in a brick and mortar casino. So to answer Senator Evans, yes, they are consistent and it's limited to casinos.
All right. Are there any other questions? All right. If either of the two witnesses who are identified wishes to speak, you can do so now, but you don't have to.
Any other speakers?
Are there any other speakers?
Anyone besides him? Mr.
Right.
Chairman, I move to report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Right. Okay. All right. So the vote is 14-0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. All right, and I think we passed by for the day another bill from another bill of yours.
Mr. Chairman.
2029. Yeah. So we passed that by for the day. We'll take that up next week then.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Do you want to? We passed 2175 in a block, and it needed adjustment. Do you want to deal with that now or later, sir?
And now would be fine.
Mr. Chairman, so having voted on the prevailing side by which we approved House Bill 2175 in the block, I move that we either reconsider the vote for the individual bill, if possible. So I move the vote by which we passed the three bills in the block be reconsidered.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Let's vote on the board.
Well, hey, we'll get you.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, Mr. Chairman, I move that we pass House Bill 1816 and HB 1943 in block.
All right, there's a motion to pass, all right, there's a motion and a second to pass the first two bills in a block. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Ayes 14, no 0. Those two are reported again. All right, now to 2175.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I think we can take up House Bill 2175, which is pretty, but there is a substitute, Mr. Chairman, so I'd have to ask if staff has the substitute available.
All right, do you have substitute?
Mr. Chairman, the substitute should be online now.
All right.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, the substitute is before us.
And Mr. Chairman, would you like me to take a pass at explaining what's going on here?
Either you or somebody else. So.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, this is Senator McClellan's bill. In the interim, we spoke to some commercial real estate attorneys who brought our attention to the fact that this was broader than we anticipated. If you were dealing with Greenbrier Mall, it would have fallen under the same set of circumstances. So you'll find on line 218, we add language that speaks to owner-occupied residential real estate, and in the case of all other deeds of trust. On line 230 to 232, we do the same. Deeds of trust conveying owner-occupied residential real estate, and in the case of all other deeds of trust. So, Mr. Chairman, the attempt here was to make sure we differentiated between the residential real estate that we were targeting in the original bill and accepted to commercial real estate, which is a whole different set of circumstances. And, Mr. Chairman, that is the difference in the substitute in the original bill.
All right, are there any questions or comments? All right, is there a motion?
I move to report the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the substitute. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 11, noes 0, or noes 1.
All right, ayes 11, noes 1. That bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next.
Do we have to re-adopt the others that were in the block, or
We already did that.
Okay.
We already did that with those other two. Yep. All right, next is House Bill 1842. Delegate Keem. Is he online? Okay. All right. House Bill 1847 from Delegate Sickles. Is Delegate Sickles available?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we can take that bill up.
All right.
If we want to adopt the Senate version as a substitute to the bill, it's essentially identical from the sports bet technical fix bill that I carried. There's a couple of changes that we'll need to discuss with the House, but recommend that we move the Senate version of the substitute.
All right, so we have a motion to conform this to the Senate version of the sports betting. There's a second to that. Any questions or comments from anybody? All right, this will be a voice vote on the substitute, adopting the substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right, the substitute is before us now. All right, motion and a second to report the substitute. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 1, 1 abstention.
All right, the bill is reported.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Delegate Askew, I know he presented one bill already. He has two more in this committee. He may be available. I don't know if you want to call on him or not.
Okay. Is he, Delegate Askew, are you still hanging in? So,
Yes, Mr. Chair, I am still here.
all right, why don't you proceed with, I guess it'd be House Bill 1993.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. HB 1993 is a bill that requires state agencies to establish and maintain a comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan in coordination with the governor's director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mr. Chair, the ultimate goal is that state agencies have a DEI strategic plan, which will improve workforce culture, to lead to improved performance and output, 3, improve equitable access to the opportunities, resources, and services provided to the populations served by these state agencies. Mr. Chair, I hope it be the will of the committee to pass this bill, and I'm here for any questions. I also have, I believe, Dr. Janice Underwood and another individual to speak to this if there are any questions.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Donovan.
how is this alike or different from Senator Hashmi's bill?
Delegate Askew, do you know how close this is?
Was that Senator Hashmi's bill?
No, I don't have a concurrent
Okay,
bill.
there was a bill that we saw in the Senate that looked at this same issue and developing an interagency. What is that bill?
Mine is related to environmental justice interagency cooperation.
So this is an entire separate authority.
This is separate issue.
Is there a budget amendment with this, Mr. Chairman?
Delegate Askew, was there a budget amendment associated with this bill? And,
Mr. Chair, there is no budget amendment. There's no fiscal impact. There is HB 1800, which was introduced this year. That includes $200,000 in the Office of the Governor, in the Office of the DEI, to fund contract worker to support to the agencies to serve in a pilot program that has been created.
Okay. Okay. So there is no budget amendment. There's funding already available, but Finance and Appropriations has asked for this bill to be referred to them if we're going to report it.
Second.
All right. There's a motion to report, and we refer to Finance and Appropriations. And there's a second to that motion. Is there any discussion on it? All right. All in favor, vote on well, is there anybody to testify? All right.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Janice Underwood, Chief Diversity Officer to Governor Northam, and Karen Kimsey, Director of DMAS.
All right. Proceed.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As I stated, I'm Janice Underwood, Chief Diversity Officer to Governor Northam. Governor Northam and the Governor's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion strongly support this legislation. Thank you to the Chief Patron and co-patrons for your laser-focused leadership with this legislation. The reason we strongly support this proposed legislation is because it would, as Delegate Askew mentioned, require that all state agencies in the Commonwealth incorporate a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. This would also help to support all the DEI goals across the Commonwealth. This kind of diversity-led innovation is being leveraged in the corporate sector and largely in higher education. And we do believe it's time for our state agencies to lead the nation in this way so that we can increase agency effectiveness and innovation and benefit from the economic return on investment these efforts will provide, as well as, I'm happy to share with you, attract more business to our state who want to do business with a state who is leading in this way. I do want to make mention that the code mandates that the Governor's Chief Diversity Officer creates a statewide strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And therefore, in preparation for this, which Delegate Askew mentioned just a few minutes ago, I have convened a pilot group of agencies who have volunteered to begin this work. Our pilot group has been working since the summer of 2020 and includes agency heads of about 15 agencies. And we have one of our agency heads here with us today who can speak to this experience, Karen Kimsey, Director of DMAS.
Are there any questions of our Governor's Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion? All right, Karen Kimsey, you're next in terms of speaking.
Sir, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's my honor to be here to speak to you. I'm Karen Kimsey. I'm the director of the Virginia Medicaid program, which serves 1 in 5 Virginians through a dedicated team of 731 staff. I strongly support this bill because I feel for us to be able to deliver the best care and support for our members and stakeholders, it's critical to prioritize DEI initiatives within our own agencies. It is important to make sure that we are taking care of our teams so they feel valued, safe, and strong contributors as public servants to our publicly funded programs in the best work for the Commonwealth. And I also feel that it's really hard to talk the talk, so to speak, sir, if you're not living it and walking it yourself. And so my team and I, along with Dr. Underwood and her office and other critical state agency leaders, are working to drive positive changes in this effort. We have already been working on this for the last 2 years. We've been working within our own parameters of our state budgets. And it's my sincere hope that through this bill that all agencies will be encouraged to do the same work. And we're happy to support the work.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of Karen Kimsey? All right, is there anyone else to testify? One more?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Kenneth Gilliam, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kenneth Gilliam. I serve as a policy director for New Virginia Majority, and we strongly support this bill. I want to thank Delegate Askew and the other patrons for carrying this piece of legislation, but as well as thanking Dr. Underwood, as well as Mrs. Kinsey from DMAS for also supporting this as well, as we believe that is the role of at each level of our state government. It's their role to think through their responsibility to making sure that our state government is equitable and inclusive, and so we strongly support this bill. And thank you all so much for the work that you all have been doing.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Gilliam? All right. And that's it in terms of public testimony. All right. Any further comments or any motion? All right. A motion to report and a second. If there's no further discussion, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 11, noes 2, 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. And do you have one more bill?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. House Bill 2085.
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Mr. Chair, 2085, currently the Code of Virginia requires each locality to prepare and maintain an emergency operations plan. Given the diversity of each locality in Virginia and the set of potential hazards being different across the Commonwealth, the code does not provide many specifics for what needs to be included in these individual plans. Mr. Chair, each plan should at minimum include elements that ensure equity in the application of the plan to ensure the needs of minority and marginalized communities are met. This bill provides localities flexibility to be sure that the populations are protected and taken care of during these said emergencies without presenting a large fiscal impact. Mr. Chair, I hope it'd be the pleasure of the committee to pass this bill along.
All right. Are there questions of the patron? All right. Is there anyone to testify on the bill? All right. We have 2 people to testify.
Kenneth Gilliam, please go ahead.
Again, good, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Kenneth Gilliam, New Virginia Majority, and we support the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Gilliam. Any questions of this speaker? All right, next.
Bill Lawson, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for talking with us today. From the Virginia Emergency Management Association perspective, we strongly support this and wanted to push this forward. As we've heard and seen through other disasters and emergencies, sometimes there are some things that slip through the cracks. For example, when we're looking at evacuations and things, whether or not we're accounting for those folks that might not have access to transportation. So with that used as an example, what we want to do is make sure that as these emergency plans are updated, they're updated every 4 years per the state code now, that as we're doing this, people are looking at what's happening in their communities and where there might be some gaps that can be fixed and filled in. We want to make sure that as people are being evacuated or sheltered or any of those things, that it's done equitably across the board throughout the jurisdictions within. We feel that this plan is the perfect place to do that because it also dictates what happens during mass casualty events, as well as how the structure of the local jurisdiction is set up during an emergency. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have about that or emergency management for that matter. We can talk about it for a while in our profession.
All right. Who wants a course in emergency management here? So, any questions? So. All right. We have a motion to report and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board. Okay.
Ayes 13, noes 1.
All right. That bill is reported. All right. We now will go back to. Now that we've finished with Delegate Askew, we'll go back to Delegate Keem, who has House Bill 1842. Delegate Keem, you can present the bill.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. I'm sorry that I missed it when you called me. I was voting in the House Education on a fine bill by Senator Barker on George Mason University, so that's my excuse. Anyway, let me begin with a technical amendment. It's a very small line amendment to the bill, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do we have the line amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it is posted online. It simply changes on line 74. After the word by, it strikes the word regulation and inserts resolution. It was just an autocorrect error on our part.
All right, we have a line amendment motion and a second. So no further discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The line amendment is adopted. Proceed, Delegate Keem.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This bill is a result of a work that we did through the Housing Commission, and it was recommended by the Housing Commission on a unanimous basis to support this bill. The bill is an effort to try and give our homeowners associations that have multi-family unit dwelling units, whether it's condominiums or townhomes and other places that have attached walls, to be able to control, to the extent they can, the issue of secondhand smoke. As many of you know from hearing from constituents, I certainly have for many years, the concern that not only do you have secondhand smoke in the patios and the balconies and the common areas, but now with a lot of people smoking indoors, especially during COVID, with a lot of people staying inside, that the smell and the smoke and the hazard seems to bleed into each other's homes through ventilations and such. So this is a way for us to provide some more legal authority and clarify if there was any question about the authority that condo associations and homeowners associations have to be able to amend their own bylaws and governing regulations and within their own documents to be able to address this issue. Obviously, they'd have to get the vote of the membership to do so, but that's all the bill does. I do have a couple of people in the audience. If you need somebody to explain the legality of it, Ms. Pia Trigiani and also Ms. Jane Flowers from the Health Department are here, but if you don't need them, they're in standby. Just want to let you know about that.
All right. All right. Any questions for the patron? All right. Any questions for the people in the standby who can speak to the legal issues, et cetera, and the health issues, I guess. So. All right. Is there anyone else to speak?
Lucia Trigiani.
She was.
Or excuse me, Elizabeth Palin.
Oh, she's here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. HB 1842 was thoroughly vetted and received the unanimous endorsement of the bipartisan Virginia Housing Commission. Delegate Keem explained the bill. It provides a new way to establish rules and regulations and authority to prohibit smoking if it's the will of the community association, except where an association or property owner association's instrument prevents it from doing so. I'm here to answer any questions if you need me to do so.
All right, any questions for Elizabeth Palin? All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator McPike.
Just one question, maybe it's for Pia or one of the other condo association attorneys. The definition of common elements or common areas, could that be an adjacent outside common area that is, I don't know, 50 feet, 100 feet from any entrance to the condo?
Chairman, I'm glad to address Delegate Senator McPike's question. The answer is yes, it could, Mr. Chairman, be an area immediately adjacent or a distance. The bill applies to both attached dwellings in property owners associations and communities governed by property owners associations and in condominium developments as well.
So,
any further questions?
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator McPike.
So what would happen in this scenario where a condo association just says all common areas, and for instance, that is the only place or an opportunity for a resident, if they should choose to smoke, whether that be, you know, whatever tobacco product? What would be a solution? I don't see anything that sort of has a carve out or a limitation or distance in the bill. Can Pia maybe address those scenarios?
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to address Senator McPike's question. The answer is that currently the associations can limit or restrict smoking anywhere in common areas or common elements. They already have that authority. This bill addresses the ability to regulate smoking elsewhere. And there is a provision in the in both the Property Owners Association Act, and with this bill, there will be a similar provision in the Condominium Act that allows a community to reject a rule that is overly restrictive. So there is a process in place, which Delegate Keem also referred to, which does allow the association membership to reject or modify a rule.
All right.
Just one follow-up question.
Senator McPike.
What would be the threshold in that process you just described? Would it require 3/4 of all membership or some other? I mean, obviously it probably varies by the bylaw, but what is the typical threshold?
We're under the statutes, it's a simple majority.
All right. Any further questions or any comments? All right. Is there anyone else to speak to the bill? Okay. All right. All right. Is there a motion on the bill?
Move to report.
All right. There's a motion to report. Is there a second? Second. All right.
Mr. Chair, with the amendment?
With the amendment, yes.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. As amended. If there's no further comments or questions, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
That bill is reported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second.
All right. All right. Delegate Simons is next. House Bill 1849. Is she available?
Here I am.
All right. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. HB 1849 is a Section 1 study bill looking at how we can expand the use of apprenticeships for contractors with public procurement projects. The study directs the Virginia Board of Workforce Development the Department of Labor and Industry, and the Department of General Services to review the availability of registered apprenticeship programs, and then consider if a requirement for bidders on public procurement projects to participate in registered apprenticeship programs would help the construction industry meet its long-term workforce needs. We are trying to lay a foundation for how we can expand apprenticeship participation for those who have construction projects with public bodies to make sure all industries are active partners in investing in our Virginia workforce. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, are there any questions for the patron? All right, anyone signed up to speak on this one?
Jason Parker, please go ahead.
All right.
Jason Parker, please go ahead.
Sorry, I was transitioning in. Thank you. Yes, it's no secret that there's a big need for people in the trades. We think that this is a great way to do real workforce development by bringing people into the trades in the best way we know how, which is apprenticeships and has been being done for hundreds of years. We think this study will help lead the way to finding the correct way for contractors in the state and workers to transition into creating a better workforce that will attract more projects and more manufacturers. Right now we have offshore wind, we have solar, we have casinos, we have data centers, we have distribution centers. We've got a huge project in a bridge tunnel project right now. We've got so much work we don't know what to do with. We've got higher learning, we've got federal work, we've got state work. And I know that from our local unions right now, manpower is much needed, and we need to open up that super highway to transition young people into becoming tradesmen and women in the state of Virginia. Thank you, sir.
All right, any question for the speaker? All right, is there anyone else to speak? One more, okay.
Robert Bohannon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob Bohannon speaking on behalf of the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance and the Richmond Area Municipal Contractors Association. This is the Road Builders Association and then the local Heavy Contractor Association here in the Richmond area. We want to be clear, we support job training programs, apprenticeships. I just want the committee to understand, I realize the bill now is a Section 1 bill and is a study bill, but it talks about requiring contractors engaged in construction contracts to participate in apprenticeship programs. This is a real challenge for road construction because due to the nature of the work being on dangerous job sites on the side of the road, most people are not put on the job site until they are ready. It's not a place where you have apprentices come like you would have with plumbers or electricians or what have you. And then the other thing is, you know, the bill originally looked at requiring every trade that was involved to have a program. On a complex road project, you can have 20 to 25 different trades on the ground on a project at a given time. And that can be, you know, very costly for the person who's paying for the project, and also can be challenging just because, again, there aren't a lot of on the road construction side, there aren't as many apprenticeship programs. There's a lot of educational programs. I mean, here in the Richmond area, you've got Goochland High School that has a training academy. There's great community college programs. Would love to engage with members of the General Assembly on ways we can more promote that because, as the previous speaker mentioned, one of the biggest challenges we do have is finding qualified workers to fill those positions. But we don't think requiring apprenticeships is the right way to go for all construction industries. Thank you.
All right, are there questions of the speaker?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Hashmi.
Just a quick question for the speaker, Mr. Bohannon. This bill is requiring, or this bill is actually a study to determine the workforce needs. So did I hear you correctly that heavy construction and road work is opposed to having this study?
No, not opposed to study. I just, you know, we talk about, as the bill was originally written, and it's still in this bill here, where it talks about the possibility of requiring contractors to have those apprenticeship programs for road construction. You know, requiring that isn't feasible for those, you know, those reasons I laid out. Certainly, job training and looking at ways to get more folks in. We are 100% in agreement. We should examine ways to do that and promote that as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Bohannon.
All right, thank you. Any further questions?
Mr. Chair, just
Yes, Senator McPike.
follow-up question to Mr. Bohannon. The statement was that somehow implied that electrical work or other trade work is not dangerous, by default saying that highway construction is somehow different. And frankly, all trades are hazardous. How does one, Mr. Bohannon, how do you reconcile sort of those statements and somehow highway contractors are different? I'm pretty sure direct current is fairly dangerous.
And Mr. Chairman, to answer Senator McPike's question, he's exactly right. I actually had electrical contractors at my house yesterday with an apprentice who was assisting. I simply meant to say the actual job site itself on the side of a road, traffic going by, that kind of thing. I mean, he's exactly right. I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate anything. Certainly understand there is danger on all job sites. I just meant the nature of a job site with traffic going by at higher speeds is particularly dangerous.
All right, but just to be clear, Mr. Bohannon, if I come to your house as an electrical contractor, beware. So, all right, are there any other questions or comments? No one else to speak, I assume. Right. All right, we have a motion to report. Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 8, noes 5.
All right, ayes 8, noes 5. The bill is reported. All right, Delegate Simons, I think you have two other bills.
Yes.
To present. You won the lottery. 1944, so next up. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. HB 1944 requires that a casino operator must provide human trafficking recognition training for employees as a condition of licensure. This training will apply to anyone who works directly with the public in the casino and will be approved by the Virginia Lottery Board. As we know, human trafficking has been a problem in Virginia because of our major airports, highways, and military bases. This bill is designed to protect people, but also to protect the new casino businesses coming to our state so that criminal enterprises don't try to take advantage of these new entertainment venues. This bill is a common sense measure to ensure that there are trained and effective bystanders ready to safely intervene if human trafficking is suspected, so that we have an environment where victimization cannot occur in the first place. Thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions.
All right, are there questions for the patron?
I have one.
Yes, Senator Locke.
Delegate Simons, who is going to provide this training?
So it will be approved by the Virginia Lottery Board, and the casinos themselves will provide the training.
Any further questions?
Just a comment, Senator, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Evan.
I would just, in case it might be of interest, Senator Locke, there's national groups that provide different training modules in the entertainment industry to hotels and so forth, and I would imagine it would be similar. And with that, I would move to report.
Do we have anybody to testify? Yeah, we'll have speakers on this bill.
Linwood Butler, please go ahead. Amy Seibert, please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Amy Parent-Seibert on behalf of Hard Rock Casino, and we just want to let you know that we support the bill, and we do this type of training already at 16 of our properties, and believe we will have no trouble in continuing to do that here in Virginia. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for Amy Seibert?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
My only concern on this, and I like the bill, I like where we're going with it, and it doesn't specify if it's in-person or electronic training, or it could be done remotely. Is that a possibility, or should we put that in there? I'm kind of asking the representative for the casinos. Just thinking about pandemic, I would hate to give them a requirement and then they wouldn't be able to execute it.
All right, Ms. Weaver, can you answer?
Hopefully I can answer. I mean, I think some of the training that we do now is online, but so I think we're able to sort of, adjust due to the pandemic. If that language would be in there to help us be more flexible, I think that would be appreciated. Obviously, if we need to comply currently as a pandemic is going on, that would be helpful.
Mr. Chairman, as I read the language, it's neutral in terms of format, so it could be either or.
Mr. Chairman, I agree it is neutral. My only thought would be if they were, since someone else is going to determine if it's acceptable or not, that they wouldn't, put them in a situation where they can't get the training.
Yeah, I would presume that the lottery department would specify, or at least have to approve the training courses so that they would make sure that they would meet the requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I have faith they'll do it right, and if not, we can revisit.
Okay. All right, is another speaker? What's that? Two more people, okay, thank you. All right, next speaker.
Lauren Schmidt, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Lauren Schmidt on behalf of the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance. We support this bill. Our agencies work with local businesses to provide this kind of training, and this will help prevent victimization from even happening in the first place. So we thank Delegate Simons for putting this bill in. Thank you.
All right, any questions of the speaker?
Move report.
Wait a second, we got another speaker here.
Sidney McCoy, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm actually not Sidney McCoy. I'm Patrick McKenna standing in for Ms. McCoy. So she's much prettier than I, so bear with me on that. Okay. I'm the president of the Virginia Coalition Against Human Trafficking. It's an alliance of service providers, attorneys, survivor advocates, and community members on a mission to remove barriers preventing survivors from achieving a full and healthy life. The member organizations represent hundreds of survivors across Virginia, and those organizations survivors would attest to the need for this legislation for a number of reasons. Versus prevention, I think alluded to by the last speaker. The ability for our employees to interact with the public to understand what they're seeing and how to respond may help discourage trafficking occurring within the establishment in the first place. Second is identification. Casino and gaming industries are in a unique position to recognize and respond to trafficking because victimization unfortunately occurs in the casino and gaming setting. So accordingly, this legislation passed could lead to the identification of survivors, which could ultimately result in them breaking free from their trafficking situation. And while we understand that some entities are taking voluntary action to address this issue, codification of the process will ensure that all entities take this issue seriously and have the process and staff in place with the knowledge necessary to ensure they know what they're seeing, what to do when they see it, and they feel equipped and empowered to take action. So accordingly, we're asking the committee to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you.
All right. Any questions of the speaker? All right, and that's all the speakers, right? Okay. All right, the bill's before us. Report. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? Then we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
All right, that bill is reported. And you have one more, House Bill 2321.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging all these bills today.
Which, on this one? Yeah, okay. All right, yes, proceed, Delegate Simon.
I'm honored to be able to present to you today HB 2321, which establishes the position of Secretary of Labor for the Commonwealth. When I told people about this bill, they say, what? We don't have a Secretary of Labor? And it is surprising since we talk a lot about jobs and the workforce needs all the time. We talk the talk about workforce, but I believe having a Secretary of Labor is going to help us walk the walk. HB 2321 gives the Secretary of Labor responsibility for the Department of Labor and Industry, the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation, and the Virginia Employment Commission, taking them out of the Department of Commerce and Trade into a separate workforce-focused secretariat. The Secretary will develop a statewide strategic plan for workforce development and training programs, establish measures to evaluate these programs, and conduct annual evaluations. The Secretary will also monitor federal legislation and policy, which will allow Virginia to better leverage federal funding dollars. The bill will have no fiscal impact since funding has already been appropriated to cover the operating costs of the Office of the Chief Workforce Advisor, which has been elevated to a cabinet level position. That was accomplished through a governor's memo, but this makes the arrangement permanent and formalizes the reporting relationships. The COVID crisis has really shown how critical our Virginia Employment Commission safety net really is, and that it needs the highest level of attention from government. Helping workers displaced by the pandemic and adjusting to our new telework culture will be among the challenges this new secretary will face. Other challenges will include diversifying our workforce and preparing people for the demanding high-tech jobs of the future. As leaders, one of our urgent tasks is job creation, and I believe the Secretary of Labor will help us elevate and focus our attention on the needs of workers and expanding job opportunity in Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am happy to take any questions.
All right, are there questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Wason.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Simons, I see that you're just elevating the Chief Workforce Development Officer to cabinet level, but it sounded like, are you moving another department under it, or does she already oversee those departments?
She already sees, Mr. Chair, she does already oversee these departments, but it is not a permanent situation in the code. So we would be moving these 3 departments under the Secretary of Labor.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't know if there's members of the public waiting to speak, but if they're not, I have a motion.
Okay. Yeah, speakers. Okay. How many? 6? Okay. Oh, 2. Oh. All right.
Megan Healy, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Megan Healy, Chief Workforce Advisor. The administration supports this bill. Very similar to what Delegate Simon said, is I think my role has changed this past 3 years from really making sure people get jobs to making sure people are secure on the job. So it's through discrimination, wage theft, misclassification, and more importantly, this past year is when people lose jobs to oversee the Employment Commission. I do want to say that I co-share, I would say, Department of Labor and Industry with Secretary Brian Ball. So the Virginia Employment Commission and the Department of Professional Occupation Regulations by memo has been moved to me since I was confirmed by the General Assembly. But I do a lot of the workplace safety, as many of you know, the wage theft and misclassifications and minimum wage issues at Department of Labor, along with Secretary Ball. Thank you.
All right, are there questions of Ms. Healy?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Why labor and not workforce? Workforce is, to me, a more comprehensive term. It's one we've used in Virginia for a while. Why are we switching to labor?
Megan, do you have, can you answer that question?
Or for the patron, either one.
Or the patron, Delegate Simons.
I'm happy to answer that. I mean, I think that there's something iconic about a Secretary of Labor. I think it really gets it's a cultural touchstone. We all know what labor stands for, and I think it sounds better than a Secretary of Workforce.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would suggest that it sounds limiting because labor sounds more in the union sector. Workforce addresses all workforce, the entire Virginia workforce. And so I would have to disagree with that assertion.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, do we have anybody else to speak? We have one more to speak, I think, so.
Doris Kraus Mays, please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Doris Kraus Mays, and I'm president of the Virginia AFL-CIO, and we stand in support of this bill. The Chief Workforce Development Advisor position has been in place since actually 2005. The issue, though, is currently under the Secretary of Commerce and Trade, there are 12 agencies. This bill will just also in terms of making a secretary position, the Chief Workforce Development Advisor is already a cabinet level position, just not a secretary. So this bill is taking the three agencies, Department of Labor and Industry, DOLE, the Virginia Employment Commission, and DPOR, and putting those three agencies from the 12 that Commerce and Trade currently has. During this pandemic, it really became obvious why we really do need to have a Secretary of Labor working with workers and everything. The Commerce and Trade Secretary does a wonderful job, but also having this will allow a secretary to also focus more and give these agencies much more support. So for those reasons, we ask that you pass the bill. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions of the speaker? All right, are there any further questions or comments?
Move to report.
Mr. Chairman, I notice there's two people in queue waiting to speak. Senator Hashmi, you were ahead of me. Did you want to speak?
Well, I was debating whether to speak or not, but Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me, I'll go ahead.
Certainly.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Hashmi.
Chairman. I just wanted to circle back to the question raised by Senator Donovan. I do think that the term Department of Labor is actually quite appropriate. It is in alignment with the federal nomenclature that we have. It is also in alignment with most states that have Department of Labor. It's readily understood in terms of what such a department seeks to serve and underscore. I think it's very limiting to see it only in the context of labor unions. That is certainly a reality, but the Department of Labor, as it's commonly understood, covers a full spectrum of services and resources, and I think it's an appropriate name for our proposed new cabinet position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up, I think as we talk about things like the tech talent pipeline, we talk about higher ed, we talk about education beyond high school that prepares for that third of the jobs in the workforce that we need that don't require a baccalaureate or above. We first of all, I'll point out, we're not setting up a department, we're setting up a secretariat. And I believe that, I honestly think for Virginia, workforce is a more inclusive term for what we're talking about, this workforce that's a range of all sorts of different competencies in education. I'm going to propose amendment that we change this to Secretary of the Workforce Secretary.
All right, there's a motion and a second to change to from Secretary of Labor to Secretary of Workforce. Is there any discussion or questions on that amendment? All in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No. The chair is in doubt. We'll vote on the board.
Ayes 8, noes 6.
All right, ayes 8, noes 6. That motion is adopted. Is there further discussion?
Move to report.
All right, and we do need to refer to finance.
Move to report and refer this bill with no fiscal impact to finance.
Second. Is there a second to the motion? All right. Is there any further discussion or questions on the bill? All right, then we will vote on the board.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
All right, ayes 14, no 0. That bill is reported to finance. All right, thank you very much, Delegate Simons. All right, next we have House Bill 1864 from Delegate Price. Is she on? All right. Delegate Price, you're up with House Bill 1864.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. I assume everybody else can too, so.
Perfect, thank you. So as was mentioned earlier, House Bill 1864 is identical to part of Senator McClellan's Senate Bill 1310. It's the identical provisions that would add domestic workers into the Human Rights Act of Virginia. I can go further, but just wanted to stop and check in there.
All right, any questions for the patron of the bill?
Just, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Eben.
It's identical to part, but I assume that it encompasses a bit more. Maybe she could tell us what else it includes.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, let's answer, give the delegate opportunity to answer Senator Evans' question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Senate Bill 1310 is more broad and encompasses more. So I'm sorry, I don't have the line numbers, but it is in the defining of what a domestic worker is, defining what an employer is for the purposes of including domestic workers into the Human Rights Act of Virginia. That's what House Bill 1864 covers, but Senate Bill 1310 covers more dealing with the domestic workers.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, this is what I was addressing earlier. The Senator McClellan's Bill 1310 covers much more. There were two House bills that cover that same ground. The controversy on her bill when it was going through was over adding the workers' comp provisions, which was taken out of the other bill, that it does not apply to this bill. And this bill, lines 12 through 150 or 151 are identical. I checked it with Senator McClellan earlier today. So with that, I move to report.
All right. By finance, okay.
Move to report and refer.
Second. All right, there's a motion to report and refer to finance. Any further discussion or question on questions? All right. Is there anybody to speak on this?
Sure. If you'd like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand. We have one, Mr. Chair. We have one.
All right, we have someone to speak on the bill.
Todd Gaffey, please go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I just want to caution the committee on this bill. And I know that Senate Bill 310 did be voted out and it went through the Senate. But this bill, we are deeply concerned about the impact it will have on individuals' decisions about who they hire to come into their own home, to the privacy of their own home, and decisions they make to take care of their kids while they are away. We think that parents, families should have the ability to make these decisions to make sure that they align with their values. If they want to have a female take care of their children while they're not there, that should be up to the parents, and they should not feel the weight of a potential lawsuit if they do not hire or if they fire someone because they conflict with their deeply held values. And it's also put into the code section where other places is 15 or more employees. Here it's just one employee, one babysitter, one nanny, one tutor for their child. So I would caution the committee on this, and we thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right, any questions for the speaker? All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Any other speakers?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, wait a second. We have another speaker, so we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Alexis Rogers, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, or the committee. My name is Alexis Rogers with Care in Action. I was just coming in to speak in support of this very good bill that you all have already passed out of the Senate, and thank Delegate Price for her leadership. I'll let her respond to the opposition that just spoke. Thank you so much.
All right. Anybody else? One more speaker. All right.
Kenneth Gilliam, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Kenneth Gilliam with New Virginia Majority. First, want to thank Delegate Price for carrying this bill, as well as the patron for the similar bill in the Senate. We strongly support this bill, and also continuing to move Virginia forward and making sure that we are making sure that domestic workers have rights. And so definitely support this bill, and thank you, Delegate Price, for carrying this piece of legislation.
All right. Delegate Price, did you want to speak further on the bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that House Bill 1864 is not changing existing law regarding the bona fide occupational qualification exceptions. It preserves that. So the limited existing exception of an employer to a domestic worker to set religion, sex, or age as a bona fide occupational qualification is still intact with this bill.
All right. Any further questions? Any comments? All right. Is there a motion on the bill? Yeah, this would have to be if it's reported, it would have to be referred to finance. What's that? So moved. Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second to report and re-refer to finance. Is there further discussion? All right. Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 7, noes 7.
Ayes 7, noes 7. Does anyone want to make a motion to pass this by for the day, since we're probably not going to break that tie, so.
So moved.
All right. All right, unless there's objection, we will pass this by for the day. Well, but the bill's still before us. The motion did not pass, so we don't have to reconsider the motion. Yeah, yeah. All right, and then we have Senator Delegate Price. We also have House Bill 2014.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, House Bill 2014 is a continuation of the work that we're doing to prevent evictions in Virginia. Currently, there is a limit of once every 12 months for a tenant to use their right of redemption, even though the landlord is made completely whole in that process. House Bill 2014 would remove that limit. It also changes the deadline from specific to 2 business days to 48 hours. And further, it requires notices of lease termination for non-payment of rent to clearly state the total amount due to prevent an eviction, and it clearly directs the landlord to notify the sheriff that the eviction should be canceled once the tenant redeems. This puts tenants on a similar footing with homeowners and landlords facing foreclosure. And Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I do want to let you know that this bill was a collaborative effort with stakeholders and informed by both landlords and tenants and their representatives. And I do hope that it is the pleasure of the committee to move this bill forward.
All right. Are there questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Price, so this is when you're coming to the court, right, and paying the whole shebang. You're paying all your back rent, any fees, anything that's accumulated at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would answer that is correct. Any of the rent that is due according to the late fees and court fees and the sheriff's fees. And that is, again, more clearly stated in this bill to what everything is included. And that is the total amount that we would also be saying it needs to be on the notice so the tenant knows that total amount due.
Got it. Last question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Mason.
So there are a couple of these bills, but this is one that all the parties have come together and worked out an agreement, and everybody's on the same page on this one. Is that right, Delegate Price? I think.
Yes, to my knowledge, and based on the testimony before the House General Laws Committee, yes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Any other questions of the patron? All right, any speakers on this bill? What's that? Oh, 5 speakers, okay. All right, we will take the speakers.
Christy Mara, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, and thank you, Delegate Price, for bringing this legislation. And to Senator Mason's question, we did sit down. I'm sorry, Christy Mara with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. I apologize. We did sit down with representatives of the Virginia Association of Realtors, the Apartment and Office Building Association of Metropolitan Washington, and the Virginia Apartment Managers Association, and shared our ideas for amendments to this bill. And I am very happy to report that as a result of that collaborative effort, the bill that you have before you today, I think, is actually a better bill that is more protective both of tenants' interests in staying housed and of landlords' interests to get paid the full and accurate amount that they owe at the time the payment is made, including, as Delegate Price mentioned, any sheriff's fees, any court fees, any attorney's fees, late fees, and the rent itself. So we ask that you report the bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Chip Dix, please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chip Dix on behalf of the Virginia Realtors and also the Northern Virginia Apartment Association. And Ms. Mara is exactly correct. We sat down, shared ideas, worked through the process. We appreciate the patron working with us, and the Realtors and the Northern Virginia Apartment Association support the bill.
Thank you. Next.
Delaney Larkin, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Delaney. I'm here on behalf of Tidewater Tenants' Rights, 100% volunteer group advocating for tenants' rights in the Hampton Roads area. We support this bill as another form of tenant protections that will help reduce the current power imbalance between landlords and tenants. There's a multitude of reasons why rent can be late, like reduction of hours, loss of job, losing a family member, mental or physical health problems, loss of benefits, etc., all of which are things that can happen more than once a year, and having an arbitrary cap on the right to redemption is unfair to the tenant. Another very important aspect of the bill is requiring the landlord to ask the court to mark the judgment as satisfied, as evictions on records can lead to the tenant being unable to find additional places to rent in the future. This bill will keep more people in their homes, which is our first priority and should be yours. We support HB 2014. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Brian Gordon, please go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Gordon on behalf of the Apartment and Office Building Association and the Virginia Apartment and Management Association. As the delegate represented, we are supportive of the bill. We appreciate her and the stakeholder groups working with us on this bill and the amendments that were included on the House side. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Kenneth Gilliam, please go ahead.
Kenneth Gilliam, New Virginia Majority. Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We strongly support this bill. As I think about the beginning of the COVID pandemic and the recession back in 2020, housing, access to housing and making sure that tenants can stay in their homes, particularly as we are in the middle of a pandemic, was a key issue amongst our members, but also in the number of communities that we organize in year round. We see this bill as at another multi-prong of the set of issues that you have already passed to make sure that we can keep tenants housed. And so we strongly support this bill. And thank you, Delegate Price, for carrying this piece of legislation.
All right, is that it?
We have one final speaker.
What? One more? Okay, all right, we have one more speaker.
Jason Hatcher, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jason Hatcher. I'm with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. We're in strong support of this bill. We echo the comments from previous speakers who spoke about the importance of keeping tenants housed. We thank the patron for bringing it forward.
All right, thank you. All right, are there any questions or comments that members of the committee have? All right, does this one need to go to finance? Okay. All right. Something suspect? All right, we have a motion to report. Is there a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion or questions? All right, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
All right, ayes 12, noes 2. The bill is reported.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next is House Bill 1876 from Delegate Subramaniam.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I do have a substitute that I would respectfully ask the committee to move.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion to adopt the substitute? All right. Is there a second? All right. A motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The substitute is before us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This bill makes it easier to share data across workforce agencies. As you know, the Commonwealth's Workforce Development System has several resources available to help Virginians on their path to employment, but the bureaucratic and technical boundaries sometimes prevent Virginians who reach out to them from receiving the full spectrum of services. So this legislation will help solve those issues and support workforce initiatives developed by the General Assembly and the Governor's Office. This bill ensures real-time data sharing, which in turn enables coordination across workforce agencies and helps streamline some of these cumbersome business processes. It'll also help enhance our understanding of program impacts. This bill was developed in partnership with the administration and has the support of all the agencies in question. And so I hope it'll be the will of the body to report this legislation with the substitute. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Ruff.
We adopted the substitute, but it has not come up. So can you tell us the difference between the two, the original and the substitute?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the substitute, I would tell the Senator the substitute is a technical one that the AG's office brought to us. It just makes sure that this bill conforms with federal law. So on line 11, it says not, the current previous version said notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary. Just changes that to ensure that it's not in conflict with federal law.
All right. Any other questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Donovan.
Just to trigger my memory, we had another bill that aligned some workforce data with VEDP. Is this in conjunction with that? We had a Senate bill. I'm sorry, I can't remember what the bill was, but there's another effort to align education and VEDP and to do some research. Can the clerk speak to that at all?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Donovan, that is my bill, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting the Senate bill number, but this bill is different from that.
All right.
How may I ask how it's different or alike, or are they aligned, or are we passing two repetitive or problematic pieces of legislation in the same arena?
Mr. Chairman, and I can't speak for the delegate, but the Senate bill is creating an office for the creation of data and workforce study. So it is an office that would be focused in that area. And I think the delegate's bill, if I'm understanding it correctly, is working across state agencies with the Virginia workforce system, but it's not directly connected to the office that was going to be established. That office is bringing into collaboration VEDP, SHEV, and institutions of higher education and a variety of other stakeholders throughout the Commonwealth.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up question.
Yes, Senator Donovan.
As I read the language of this bill, and again, I don't have the substitute either, but I'm looking at, we're literally talking about a data trust.
Right.
It seems to me this ought to be somehow in conjunction with our, our Office of Data Analytics, which creates data. I feel like we're working in silos again here if we don't align this with the data analytics, which is supposed to be working on data trust for the whole state of Virginia. And maybe it's just an amendment that they are aligned with this, or they're engaged, or they are, you know, somehow addressing or managing this, but this is exactly what they do.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
The chief data officer's name, Mr. Chairman, is eluding me.
Carlos Romero. Yeah.
Yes. Should we just take, you want to pass it, take it by for the day, and we can see if we can align with data? It'll make the bill better. It's no harm to the bill. I support completely this concept, and actually have some budget language in along the same lines, but I just think we need to loop in data analytics on this, so if the patron would be willing to take it by for a week, we can do that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Evan.
Perhaps we could ask if our committee counsel is familiar with the other bill, if there is any conflict, because it seems to me the bill is talking about a memorandum of understanding, not precluding working with anyone in particular.
But Mr. Chairman, I think it would be wise to run this by Carlos and let him see.
Perhaps he's watching the hearing or has a representative watching the hearing?
I'm not sure whether he would be.
Okay.
He probably was when we had the bill related to his operation, but.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, one of the other things I was thinking about is looking in line 31, Chief Workforce Development Advisor. In lieu of the changes we made to Delegate Simon's bill, where we have the Secretary of Workforce is what came out, would that need to be changed as well?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
If there are any changes in the code, like Senator Bell said, for another bill, if the bill passes that names Megan Healy, the Secretary of Labor or Workforce or whatever, that will be changed throughout by the Code Commission. So that's not something that would need to be changed in each individual bill, as far as the naming goes anyway. As far as the other changes and how this bill may be similar or different from Senator Hochman's bill, I do believe that the two can coexist. If you do take it by, I can look deeper into it, but I do not think that they conflict.
All right. Do you want to make a motion to pass by for the day?
So moved.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Delegate, can I speak to that motion?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it was mentioned that Carlos's name was mentioned. We have people from the administration here as well who spoke with all the relevant people, including Carlos. I think it'd be good to have them speak to this. But I would say that the point of this bill is specifically to address what the senator mentioned, which is trying to get all of the folks in line and coordinated. That's what this bill is doing, and it's not leaving anyone out.
All right. You have someone specific to speak and address this issue?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'd like to open it up to folks that are in the waiting room from the governor's office to speak to it before we move with that motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm here to speak on behalf of the administration, Felix Shapiro.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm recognized.
Proceed.
Hello, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of this bill. It is an administrative priority, and I'd like to thank Delegate Supermayam for carrying it forward on our behalf. I'd also like to speak to Senator Donovan's concerns. This bill in no way contradicts or conflicts with the intentions of the creation of the Office of Labor Market Alignment at VEDP. In fact, it will bolster and assist in that effort by creating a unified, easily accessible data source that all partners, VEDP included, and VEDP is named in the bill, could benefit from and use. So I do not see any need to remediate the bill to loop in VEDP, as they are already a part, and I think it already perfectly aligns to the mission of Senator Hashmi's bill. Happy to take any questions that arise or speak to the bill more broadly.
Are there any questions anyone wants to ask? All right, the motion we have is to pass by for the day. Is there any objection to passing by for the day? All right, without objection, then we will pass by for the day and we'll work on providing answers to these questions for next week then. So thank you very much, Delegate Subramanian. And I don't think you have another bill up today, do you? No, okay. All right. Then next on the list is House Bill 1882 from Delegate Heretic.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members, House Bill 1882 comes at the recommendation of the Virginia Bar Association Real Estate Section and is intended to update the language governing residential and commercial deeds of trust regarding financing and amendments. With respect to residential financing, the bill simplifies the process for the automatic right of subordination to take effect after amendments. And for commercial deeds of trust, it provides guidance as to when an existing deed of trust securing a commercial loan does or does not need to be amended without affecting the priority of existing deed of trust, and provides further that an existing deed of trust states that it secures an obligation under loan documents as they may be amended, et cetera. It shall not be necessary to record an amendment to the deed of trust if the loan documents are later amended in order to secure the amended loan documents for the same priority. I'm not really aware of any opposition to this, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, it comes at the request of real estate lawyers, and I would tell you that perhaps it's understandable only by real estate lawyers. So with that, I will give it to the committee.
I don't think we are overwhelmed with real estate lawyers on the committee. So, is there questions for Delegate Heretic? All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this?
If you'd like to speak to this bill, please raise your hand. I see no hands, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right. There's no one to speak, then we have a motion and a second to report. We don't need to, this doesn't have to go to finance, does it? Okay.
Oh, sir, there's no impact.
All right. All right. Then we will vote on the board.
Ayes 13, noes 1.
All right. That bill passes. That bill will be reported. And then
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And you don't have another bill, do you?
No, sir. That's all I am today. Thank you.
All right. Good. Thank you. All right. House Bill 1891 from Delegate Ayala.
Hi, Mr. Chair, Delegate Ayala. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Well, we're close to good evening.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I'm ready to speak to the bill when you are ready for me to do so.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Just before I start, you should have all received an informal one-page briefing on this bill and its background. If you did not receive it, let me know and I'll be happy to send it over as I'm talking to HB 1891. This bill, Mr. Chairman and members, would require the Department of Human Resources in partnership with the Department of Health and Human Services to provide a mandatory public health training as part of their annual safety and disaster awareness training, something that already exists, but this would be added to it. During COVID, we've seen that education is essential. It's essential in keeping our workforce healthy and safe. Expanding this program to include this training will help keep folks informed. It will help us come out of this pandemic, with a more preparedness for the Commonwealth and other pandemics that may hit our borders. And also it will expand access to training as we're protecting Virginians every day by educating them, raising awareness, and keeping them informed. I hope you will support this bill today, and thank you for your time.
All right. Are there questions of the patron?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Delegate, did you employ a graphic artist for your one-pager, or did you do that yourself?
So I have to give my props to my chief of staff, Shannon Kane. You can call her up and say, This is a great demonstration. I do not have an artistic bone in my body, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm feeling left out. I do not have the graphic. I would like the graphic, if it can be sent over.
We can send you over a graphic.
Yeah.
Ladies, we can
The
change
the ladies are short, yes.
No, we can change the suit colors. You can interchange them. It'll be all up to you. We can even also bedazzle them if you'd like. You just call me. I'll give you my number. I'll shoot it over. We can do lunch and design away.
All right. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, is there anyone to speak on the bill? What's that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one.
One, okay, one to speak, one speaker.
Emily Elliott, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Emily Elliott, Director for the Department of Human Resource Management. I'm really here to answer any questions you might have, but just in brief, this is in addition to some existing training. We provide the safety and disaster awareness training annually to all employees right now online. It's a little under 30 minutes, and we would just be adding some of the more basic information that's already been stated related to public health and especially things of pandemic. Right now, our training is really focused on other more normal occurrences that have happened annually, such as natural disasters, weather-related events, being prepared for emergencies, acts of terrorism, or workplace violence. So this will be some additional information that we'll include and provide annually. That's it. Thank you.
All right, any questions of the speaker? All right, the bill is before us.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to report. All in, we will vote on the board. So.
Ayes 14, no 0.
All right, that bill is reported.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. We'll go back to Delegate Sickles, who's on the call now. So, House Bill 1848.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HB 1848 prohibits discrimination against Virginians with disabilities. It amends last year's bill, the Historic Virginia Values Act, extended protection from discrimination to new protected classes. You might recall it prohibits discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations. However, the Virginia Values Act did not include disability in the employment discrimination sections. Some felt that the Virginians with Disability Act, the VDA, covered things, but it is almost 400 it's almost 40 years old and contains provisions that have not been updated since that time. The VDA does not allow for administrative enforcement, including conciliation efforts by the Division of Human Rights at the Office of Attorney General. VDA is an awkward definition of, has an awkward definition of qualified person with disability that is inconsistent with federal law. And the VDA has a $500 limit on what constitutes undue hardship for the purpose of granting reasonable accommodations that was set in 1984 and has not been adjusted since. HB 1848 does 4 things to help assure people with disabilities can maintain gainful employment in Virginia. First, it adds disability to the list of protected classes, which I mentioned. Second, it adds a requirement that employers with 6 or more employees grant reasonable accommodations to people with disabilities if the accommodation is necessary to assist such person performing a particular job, as long as it does not present an undue hardship on the employer. I'd like to note at this point that that is the same exact standard used for companies with 15 employees under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So this just moves that down to 6. It, as I said, redefines a qualified person with disability, it removes the dollar limit, and it removes the ability for someone who is denied a reasonable accommodation to go straight to court within 2 years. In other words, this bill allows a person who is denied reasonable accommodation in employment to file a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights for investigation and conciliation. The person would have to exhaust administrative process before in the courts, and this is essentially similar to and mirrors the process of the EEOC enforcement process for the ADA. And that's what we did last year in this bill. That's not new. This just adds a person with disability to that administrative process we enacted last year. So that is really the bill. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I hope you agree with me that it's time to take this step. And I would welcome the witnesses. I know there are a few here to speak to the bill.
All right, are there questions of the patron? All right, go to the speakers.
Carolyn Kaywood, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Carolyn Kaywood, here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. We support House Bill 1848. Since 1992, the League of Women Voters' position on equality of opportunity has included persons with disabilities. That commitment was reaffirmed in a League convention resolution this past summer. Personally, as a library branch manager, my staff included 2 women who are blind. That branch served people with impaired vision or an inability to hold a print book. Thus, I understand reasonable accommodations in the workplace. I also understand how much persons with disabilities can contribute to their workplace. Including people with disabilities is not only simple justice, it also benefits their workplace and our economy. We urge you to move House Bill 1848 forward to make Virginia more inclusive and productive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 3.
Okay.
Director Colleen Miller, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, proceed.
Good afternoon. Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. Thanks very much to the members of the committee for considering this bill. Delegate Sickles has done an outstanding job of explaining the bill. We've been very happy to work with Delegate Sickles and with the Attorney General's office and with members of the business community to get the bill in the shape that it's in. I'm available if you have any questions, but we're really happy to have this bill today.
All right, any questions of the speaker? All right, next.
Megan Healy, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Megan Healy, Chief Workers Advisor to the Governor. The administration supports this bill and believes that no Virginian should ever be discriminated against. Thank you.
All right.
Our final speaker is Helen Hardiman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Helen Hardiman with the former Division of Human Rights and the current Office of Civil Rights at the Office of the Attorney General. We appreciate Delegate Sickles bringing this bill forward. The Virginia Values Act last year did a great job expanding employment rights for all folks, and disability seems to have been sort of left out as an oversight among the list of protected classes. And so we really appreciate him bringing this bill to help put folks with disabilities on equal footing with folks in other protected classes. So our office also supports the bill.
All right, any questions of the patron? Of the speaker? All right, the bill is before us.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to report and a second. If there's no further discussion or questions, we can vote on the board.
Ayes 13, noes 0.
All right, that bill is reported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Next up is House Bill 1931 from Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. HB 1931 is a product of the FOIA Council, and it deals with virtual meetings, but it doesn't deal with virtual meetings with regard to COVID. This bill was originally conceived last year when I had never heard of COVID-19, and it doesn't deal with situations of an emergency. That's a different bill that I think is coming before us. This bill deals with virtual meetings in normal times, when there is no emergency, when a local government or a city council, county board, local commission is meeting, there is a quorum, they're meeting in person, all the transparency measures are there, but one person cannot attend because they are dealing with a family matter. Maybe it's a personal matter. Maybe they're taking care of a sick family member. You're going to hear some testimony, in particular from Katie Crystal, Arlington County Board. I won't tell her story because she tells it much better than I do, but I think you will see why it is so essential that committed local government officials can and should be able to do two things at once, namely care for a sick family member and also serve in the capacity which they've been elected to do. What the bill does is it says that if you need to take care of a sick family member, to provide care for that member, and that prevents your physical attendance and you're a local official, you can attend virtually. And you can also attend personal matters up to 25% of the meetings. But all of these must be approved by the local government. So they must feel that you're doing this for a reasonable reason. And in fact, you have to say with specificity what the personal matter is that is on the record so the public knows why you have to meet virtually. That's the essence of the bill. I'm happy to take some questions. Otherwise, I should tell you that there is a large number of people that support this bill. You're going to hear from a few of them shortly, but I should say that in addition to VML and VACO and the elected officials you're going to hear, the bill also has the support of the American Association of University Women of Virginia, the Virginia chapter of the National Organization for Women, and more than 100 local elected officials from across the Commonwealth, including officials from Alexandria, Arlington, Blacksburg, Charlottesville, Dumfries, Fairfax, Falls Church, Herndon, Leesburg, Manassas, Norfolk, Prince William County, and Spotsylvania, to name a few. So this is a bill with wide support.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Eben.
I might have missed this, but is this bill a recommendation of the FOIA Council?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Are there questions of the patron? All right. We will go to speakers then.
Katie Crystal, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify in support of Delegate Levine's bill. You have extensive testimony in front of you, compelling legal and policy bases for these changes. I am here to just briefly add my personal experience. As Delegate Levine mentioned, I am the vice chair of the Arlington County Board. I am also a mother. Nearly 2 years ago, we welcomed my son 2 months premature in early March, just as the Arlington County Board was beginning our deliberations on the fiscal 20 budget. Participating in those budget deliberations in person wasn't feasible during my son's month-long stay in the neonatal intensive care unit. And during those weeks, the county board held not just our regular meetings, but also budget work sessions on important issues multiple times a week. I quickly made use of the 2 virtual participation opportunities afforded to me in the Code of Virginia. And for the rest of that month, I found myself frustratedly emailing questions to my colleagues to pose in these sessions, or watching the live stream of the meetings and taking notes of areas that needed follow-up commentary that I couldn't offer in real time. I truly don't believe that the public interest of my community was served by having one of its 5 county board members sidelined and prevented from asking questions or participating in the study of the budget because of a prohibition on state code in my virtual participation. I do believe, though, that my community and others across the Commonwealth is served by having parents and women, in particular, in elected and appointed life. And so local and regional bodies are better when they represent diverse perspectives, and I encourage you to empower our communities to make public service more accessible for more Virginians and to achieve more effective public policy as a result. I encourage you to support the bill. Thanks again for the opportunity to give comment today.
Thank you. Next.
Phyllis Errico, please go ahead. And just a reminder, if you'd like to speak to a bill, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Phyllis Errico with the Virginia Association of Counties, and today I also speak for the Virginia Municipal League. We strongly support this bill. We want the best and brightest in our local government official ranks, but we also want people who can take care of their family and their livelihood. And we're very concerned about transparency, but we believe this bill has the right balance between flexibility for local elected officials and also allowing for transparency while having a quorum present at the meeting. So we urge you to pass this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next.
Elizabeth Bennett Parker, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Elizabeth Bennett Parker, and I'm in strong support of this bill. This bill is about decreasing barriers so that residents across the Commonwealth with the diversity of voices and lived experiences can directly participate in their government. The law applies not only to elected officials, but to the many residents who serve voluntarily on local and regional advisory boards across the Commonwealth. About a month before I was sworn in as the Vice Mayor of Alexandria, my mother was hospitalized in Florida. While she recovered quickly and is now fine, if that were to happen again, I could miss as many as 5 meetings in a 10-day period. That is based on our meeting schedule. Other bodies meet more or less than we do. For example, the Fairfax County School Board met around 133 times last year. Female members, both elected and appointed, have been barred from participating in meetings because they were caring for a sick family member. You heard from Ms. Crystal. There are other women with different stories who could not join us today. The FOIA Council also heard from mothers that the current law, combined with childcare challenges, prevents them from serving on boards in their communities. A resident of Chesapeake spoke to the negative effect of the law on military reservists. Members of our Chamber of Commerce would like flexibility so they can serve and provide their business expertise to local boards. There are a number of other guardrails in the law that serve to retain accountability and transparency. In addition to including the member's specific personal matter and location in the meeting minutes, the body must have a written electronic participation policy allowing for and governing participation. So the bill before you does not mandate electronic participation. In addition to deciding whether or not to allow it, public bodies have the authority to govern it by adopting additional guidelines or restrictions suited to their circumstances and community. Modernizations to the law are needed. The FOIA Council recommended this bill after receiving a tremendous amount of support from members of the public and regional bodies who supported even broader changes. So I encourage you to support this bill, and I thank you for your time and service.
All right, thank you. Are there other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 4 remaining speakers. Okay. Megan Ryan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Megan Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition for Open Government. I did want to remind the committee that this was not a unanimous decision of the FOIA Council. Just for the record, it was a divided decision. We understand that there's a need for flexibility for all members, but I think it is important to recognize that this bill is about the convenience of the members. It is not about helping the public. And it is misleading to say that it is because because people can't attend that the public is harmed by the membership of the committee members. This same argument was advanced in 2013 when the issue was all these bright people who worked in DC and were held up in commuter traffic and weren't able to then participate in their boards of supervisors or other advisory boards. There is no correlation between these rules and the ability of women or men to serve in their positions. It sounds good, it feels good, but there's no relationship between the two. Our position is that this is a great expansion of these rules. It allows more opportunities to participate, which means that electronically, which means that these members are not facing the members of the public they serve, and also increasing the number of times they can avoid directly interacting face-to-face with their colleagues on a particular board. So our position has been that you can maybe expand it by 25% or maybe add the sick family member exemption, but the two together is a great increase from where we are today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Alex Thorup, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alex Thorup on behalf of the Virginia Railway Express and Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. We support this bill and thank the patron for his efforts.
Susan Burke, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Susan Burke, co-vice president for public policy of the American Association of Virginia, American Association of University Women of Virginia. We have more than 1,000 members and 24 branches all across the Commonwealth. AUW, as some of you may not know, is a national nonprofit organization committed to advancing gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy, and our vision embraces equity for all. The work of AUW builds upon responsible public participation at the local, state, national, and international levels, and we advocate public discussion to ensure enlightened decision on matters of public import. We believe the current restrictions on participation in meetings of public bodies by electronic communications are out of date and ignore the life circumstances and experiences found in a diverse population. They limit citizen participation to the privileged few and adversely impact participation by single parents, women, and other underrepresented populations, as we've already heard. AUW Virginia provided our views on this issue to the FOIA Advisory Council last November, and we understand that HB 1931 is a recommendation of that council. We welcome this bill, we're proud to support it, and we urge you to support it as an important step forward to update current law. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Michelle Gowdy. Please go ahead. Michelle Gowdy, please unmute yourself.
I didn't sign up for this bill. I apologize.
Okay. All right. That's all the speakers. Any comments or questions? All right, Senator Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as indicated in the legislation, it does come as a recommendation of the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council. And Megan is indeed corrected. It was not a unanimous decision. However, the subcommittee that studied this did so thoroughly and came forth with this recommendation. And we think that it was a fair compromise that they reached in terms of what they have recommended in HB 1931. And I think that with that, I would recommend that HB 1931 be.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second for the bill to be reported. Any discussion? All right. Let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 2.
All right. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Certainly. Next up is House Bill 1967 from Delegate Bagby. Is he on?
Hello, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate Bagby, 1967. Please present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. HB 1967 adjusts the minimum entry-level wage rate per hour a company is required to pay in order to be eligible for assistance under the Virginia Jobs Investment Program that I know you all are familiar with, from at least 1.35 times the federal minimum wage to 1.2 times the federal minimum wage or the Virginia minimum wage, whichever is higher. This is the agency bill supported by VEDP, and I believe that we have some folks here to speak in support, and I have no reason to believe that there is anyone that desires to speak against this fine legislation, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, speakers?
If you would like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand. We have one, Mr. Chair. Christy Morton, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good afternoon. My name is Christy Morton. I'm the Vice President of External Affairs at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. I'd first like to thank Delegate Bagby for carrying this bill for us. It is an administration bill. As the delegate stated, VGIP is a program I think you all are aware of. It's one of our oldest and most widely used economic development incentives in the Commonwealth. It's an important program for economic recovery as it trains Virginians for new jobs being created in their communities, either through new location decisions for Virginia or expansion projects. This legislation will align the VGIP wage requirements with the Virginia minimum wage so that the threshold for the program always stays ahead of the state's minimum wage and remains accessible for Virginia's small and rural regions. The bill is supported by the Virginia Economic Developers Association, the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the Port of Virginia, and several local chambers, including the Prince William Chamber, the Loudoun Chamber, and others. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, any questions for the speaker? All right. Wait,
Second.
do we have other speakers? No, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Do this need to go to finance? All right, none more today, wow. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, no 0.
All right, 14-0, the bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Happy voting.
All right. Next up is Delegate Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
1971.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, HB 1971 brings the Virginia Fair Housing Law into compliance with the federal fair housing law. The Virginia Fair Housing Office in DePore and its counsel at the Office of Attorney General have requested this legislation in order to bring the Virginia Fair Housing Law into alignment with the Federal Fair Housing Act in instances where someone with a disability requests accessible parking in order to fully use and enjoy their housing. The bill codifies an existing Virginia regulatory reference to longstanding HUD DOJ guidance and follows the approach taken for decades by courts across the country. Without this bill, HUD would not allow the Virginia Fair Housing Office to investigate parking-related cases. I believe Helen Hardman is here from the Attorney General's office.
All right, are there questions of the patron? All right, speakers?
Helen Hardiman, please go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much, Delegate Carr. This actually came from my client agency, the Virginia Fair Housing Office. They were in a bit of a bind with HUD based on a Supreme Court decision that awkwardly interpreted a very narrow part of our fair housing law. And so this, as Delegate Carr mentioned, aligns the state law with the federal law and allows the Virginia Fair Housing Office to continue investigating reasonable accommodation and parking requests.
All right. Are there any other speakers? All right, next.
We have Brian Gordon. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Gordon on behalf of the Virginia Apartment and Management Association and the Apartment and Office Building Association, and we are pleased to support the bill.
Thank you.
Mary Brose Vaughn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On behalf of DPOR and the Fair Housing Office, we happily support this bill and thank the delegate for carrying it.
All right.
Director Miller, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We support the bill.
Thank you.
And our final speaker is Chip Dix. Please go ahead.
All right.
Chairman, members of the committee, the Realtors and the Northern Virginia Apartment Association also support the bill and appreciate working with the Attorney General's office to finalize the language.
All right, thank you.
Move to report.
All right, a motion and a second to report. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no 0.
All right, that bill is reported. Next, Delegate Carr, you have House Bill 1981.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, 1981 addresses a problem that has arisen during and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the Virginia Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, landlords and their employees have a right to enter a tenant's unit to make repairs and improvements and show the unit to prospective future tenants and buyers as long as they give adequate notice to the tenant. In normal times, that works well. But now, during a global pandemic, tenants may not feel safe allowing people outside of their household into their home, especially if the tenants are older or have fragile health conditions. HB 1981 provides that if a tenant doesn't feel safe having workers come into her home, she can notify the landlord that she doesn't want non-emergency maintenance being addressed during the pandemic. By doing so, she agrees to hold the landlord harmless for any routine maintenance not addressed. The bill also allows tenants to provide a video walkthrough of the unit in place of having it shown to prospective tenants. Finally, HB 1981 increases the required notice of non-emergency maintenance from 24 to 72 hours. The Virginia Association of Realtors, the Virginia Poverty Law Center, as well as the Apartment and Office Building Association collaborated on this bill. There is an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Can staff provide information on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, it is line amendments, and you should see it on LIS now. It's quite lengthy, so it's a lot to report, but you should be able to.
All right. All right. All in favor of adopting the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, the amendment is adopted. All right. Delegate, do you have an explanation of the amendment?
Yes, sir. This was a consensus amendment from the Apartment and Building Office Building Association, as well as the Realtors, as well as the Poverty Law Center. So I'll let them speak to that if they would, please.
All right. Then we'll go on to public testimony.
Christy Mara, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Christy Mara with the Virginia Poverty Law Center, and I want to thank Delegate Carr and all of the stakeholders she mentioned for all of us working together to create this safety bill for tenants during a pandemic. To answer the question regarding the amendment that was just introduced actually provides some greater opportunity for landlords to do some routine non-emergency maintenance. The bill as it passed the House did not have any exception when a tenant provided written notice during a pandemic to a landlord that they did not want any non-emergency maintenance done during the pandemic. There were no exceptions to this. The amendment that you have creates a number of exceptions, and it was reached by consensus. Those exceptions are designed to make sure that something that is not an emergency during the pandemic doesn't become an emergency because of neglect. Those amendments also make sure that a landlord has the right to go in and do some non-emergency maintenance and repairs if such things are required by either the loan documents for the loan that secure the property or by the insurance on the property. And we ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
All right. Next speaker.
Brian Gordon, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, my name is Brian Gordon. I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Apartment and Management Association and the Apartment and Office Building Association. I think Christy described well the amendments. We appreciate the stakeholders and the delegate working with us on those amendments, and we are happy to support the bill as amended.
And our final speaker is Chip Dix. Please go ahead.
All right.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Chip Dix on behalf of the Realtors Northern Virginia Apartment Association. We likewise support the bill as Christy and Brian have described.
Move to report.
All right. We have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
All right. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
You're quite welcome. Next up is House Bill 2031 from Delegate Aird.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Before you is House Bill 2031, and I believe you have an amendment that I'd like reported.
All right. Can we report the amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On line 37 of the engrossed bill, insert a subsection C that says nothing in this section shall apply to commercial air service airports.
All right.
I move that wonderful amendment.
All right. There's an amendment. There's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. All right. That amendment is adopted.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And so now, before you in this proper form, again, is House Bill 2031. And ultimately what this legislation would do, and the amendment you just adopted, would require that our local governing bodies, as well as our boards of visitors, would give approval to local law enforcement agencies before deploying and purchasing and using facial recognition technology. The amendment that you just adopted ensures that this language and this bill does not apply to our Virginia commercial airlines. As you know, they have a requirement for their law enforcement entities to work with federal entities as well. And so we wanted to make sure this does not conflict with that. But ultimately, there's no shortage of data that speaks to the disproportionate impact that these facial recognition technologies have on particular communities, especially communities of color that are largely over-policed. And so all we are trying to do in the Commonwealth with this bill is put some guardrails around how we are interacting with this technology, and making sure that communities where a law enforcement agency is considering this use at least has a conversation with the local governing body and the citizens in that community. So Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that really is the bill, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
All right. Are there questions for the patron?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Evan.
Is this technology just for use in real time, or is it also involve storing tapes of facial recognition?
So it's my understanding that these databases can be used in multiple ways, including real-time and stored data. And you will note that in the version that came over from the House, we also added language to clarify that this legislation does not apply to those entities that are extracting facial recognition data and or images from body cams. That is a separate process that's not to be confused with facial recognition technology databases.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions of the patron? All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd ask the delegate, as I read the bill, how would hopefully the questions came up in the House and it's resolved somewhere by section or other reference, but it says no local law enforcement agency shall purchase or deploy facial recognition technology unless the locality, like most new apps and technology require double authentication, both in facial recognition and passcode and other things as a part of the process to download technology. How is that, and I mean no harm to the bill whatsoever, just sort of a process question.
So it's my understanding, Mr. Chairman, if I can respond, that when these databases are purchased from law enforcement agencies, there's an entire procurement process. And so I will also provide another example that specifically what we saw is a trial period where the Norfolk Police Department utilized the database Clearview. There was no notification to the local governing body. There was no really even department level conversation around the use of this database, because if you had a law enforcement email address, you can go and sign in and begin.
Can this bill we?
I'm sorry? So before any type of authorization is provided, these law enforcement officers were able to simply go in and utilize this database. And so ultimately, a local government would now have to pass an ordinance that would sort of put or give that local law enforcement actual authorization now before any of that was to occur.
Mr. Chairman, I guess a follow-up, more pointed question. is in relation to the department's own HR. In other words, its own workforce or access entry data or other tools it uses, including its own iPhones or facial recognition devices to access devices. How is that carved out of this bill? Understanding exactly what you're going for, but how does that issue carved out of this bill?
I believe you would be, in my opinion, I believe you're conflating the two. And I'm talking about databases that are specifically for law enforcement use. And I think this legislation is aimed towards actual large databases. Your cell phone that uses facial recognition technology is not considered a database of use for law enforcement. And that's what it sounds like you're referring to me. And so I just want to clarify, I understand your question, because we're really talking about companies and entities that are providing a service as a vendor to law enforcement for access to their large databases. And sometimes they're smaller, but ultimately not something like the basic technology you have on your cell phone.
Any further questions?
I guess the follow-up question would be simply to council, if that's the case, if any other ancillary technology or services that require facial recognition, would they be, in fact, fall under the definitions, or are they excluded as the delegate suggests?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McPike, can you repeat your question, please?
So, council, the question is, do other devices, for instance, for that are facial entry that do store in databases, for instance, for accessing of devices on your phone that a agency may require of their employees, and in some cases in law enforcement also require, and or access or entry devices into secure areas sometimes require facial recognition devices. Would those sort of instances be excluded, as the delegate suggests, under this provision as written?
I'm honestly not sure, to be completely honest. But if there is some amendment or something that you're suggesting to button up the language,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
honestly not sure.
Mr. Chairman. I have this. Mr. Chairman, my interpretation is pretty much the same as I think where Senator McPike's going. If I read lines 22, 24, and then down to 33 to 35, and I get where I think the patron's going. I think you're talking about internal to the agency, not using it external for the public. So would this prohibit both? And the way I would read it, it would. And Delegate Ayer, do you mind if the agency uses it internal without using it for law enforcement purposes?
No, this is specifically targeting external databases that are largely used for law enforcement identification purposes.
All right, are there additional comments or questions, or anyone interested in pursuing any other path? So,
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would just I would reiterate the actual definition that's in the bill that spells out the reference to defining facial recognition technology. And as it reads to me, it means an electronic system for enrolling, capturing, extracting, comparing, and matching an individual's geometric facial data to identify individuals in photos, videos, or real time. And as Senator McPike described his example of internal use by a human resource department to enter a program or a facility, to me, that does not seem to fall within the described definition in the bill. And so I'm curious about the question from Senator Pike making his example fall within that definition.
Mr. Chairman?
All right.
I'm supportive of the effort. Unless council has a potential amendment, would it be possible just to take it by temporarily to maybe see if council can draw up a provision that, essentially the provisions of this, section shall not apply to internal use for internal security, human resources, or other sort of management. I think it's clearly the delegate's intent. I'd be more comfortable with sort of the language was cleared out or provided a more clear definition of the exclusion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Senator McPike, would it help if on line 17 after real time, we insert for law enforcement purposes so that it is specific that all of these things are specifically for law enforcement, so then it wouldn't include any internal or HR or other background uses?
So I guess to follow up with the council, how, maybe if you could rephrase that or repeat it, because as I've heard it, it would still, the broader definition of law enforcement purposes would seem to still encompass sort of the internal workings as well. Maybe there's a better way to define it.
Okay. My thought of law enforcement purposes would not include the internal HR behind the scenes work. But yeah, if you all want to take it by temporarily, we can work on language. But is that getting to what you are describing?
Mr. Chair, I'd say yes. I just want to make sure it's clear that the internal side of the operation be excluded from it for clear purposes of either data or secure facility property. Evidence rooms may require bio or other data, depending on what police departments use, of their employees to access certain places. So I would just,
Mr. Chairman?
That's my only caution.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest if on the wording that council gave, if we just added public law enforcement or policing, either one, I think that would clarify.
Mr. Chairman? Could we also make sure that whatever language or wording is changed, that it's also okay with the patron?
Yeah. Do you want to take this by temporarily?
Mr. Chairman, to be clear, I support the bill as well. I see the concern, just trying to differentiate the two in a way to, so it's internal is separated from policing or external. I fully support that.
All right, do you want to take the bill by temporarily to allow?
But, Mr. Chairman, can we ask the patron if she would be all right with what council just suggested, if we put the word public on that?
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, please take the bill by temporarily. I would like to do a quick verification of the types of the category of a database that Senator McPike is referencing versus the category of the database that I'm referring to as described in the language of the bill, because they are two separate things. So we can take the bill by temporarily and work on the language.
All right, without objection, we will take the bill by temporarily. All right, next we have House Bill 2046 from Delegate Bourne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2046 is affectionately known by many as the anti-NIMBY bill. Basically, this bill would prohibit discrimination by local governments in their land use decisions. And that we've been finding that the discrimination has been based on the population that the proposed development is intended to house. So in this bill, we're adding protections of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, elderliness, familial status, sexual orientation, gender identity, veteran status, source of funds, and disability. It prohibits the localities from rejecting a proposed development because that development may be based on any or serve to house any of those protected classes. Mr. Chair, this bill was made it a long way. Late in the game, we found an issue. We've since resolved that issue. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
All right, are there questions for the patron? Yes, Senator Evans.
Yeah, Delegate Bourne. I'm just wondering if you might be amenable to changing status as a veteran to military status. We had other legislation doing that to be a little bit more encompassing.
Mr. Chairman, I would say to Senator Eben that that would be fine with me. And just as a general matter, I tend not to disagree with Senator Eben.
Well, I don't know if that's wise, but thank you.
Certainly. Do you want to, Senator Evans, do you want to propose an amendment?
I would request that we move where it says status as a veteran to military status.
Mr. Chairman, I did a non-discrimination bill, and it did change from veterans, since there was confusion about that, whether it included active duty, guard reserves, to just military status, which then clarifies all of that.
So that incorporates everything. So that this will be on line 78.
So that's a motion on line 78.
All right, so status as a veteran will be changed to military status. That's the amendment that's proposed. Is there a second to that amendment? All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That amendment is adopted. All right, are there other questions of the patron? All right, are there people to speak on this bill? All right.
Helen Hardiman, please go ahead.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Helen Hardiman with the Office of Civil Rights at the Attorney General's Office. Delegate Bourne, my delegate, thank you for putting this in. Mr. Fair Housing, this bill is another path for the legislature to take in creating more affordable housing, which I think we can all agree is a big need. So our office definitely supports the bill.
Aaron Barton, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Erin Barton with the Realtors. We support the bill. We support the line amendment as well, and just want to thank Delegate Bourne for all of his work on this issue.
Mr. Chairman?
But I couldn't just be.
You could presently if you.
I mean, no, but I mean, if we take off the.
Very good catch, Adam. Very good catch. Thanks a lot. I call it the Bell Amendment. I'll make it in all bills if needed, or not.
Brian Gordon, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian Gordon on behalf of the Virginia Apartment and Management Association and the Apartment and Office Building Association. We too support this bill. We think it's a great tool in the toolbox to give the localities the backing that they need in order to support affordable housing developments.
And our final speaker, Chip Dix.
Chairman, members of the committee, Aaron Barton spoke on behalf of the realtors, and I'll also echo those thoughts on behalf of the Northern Virginia Apartment Association. Thank you.
Move. Mr.
Anna Gray, please go ahead.
Hello, I'm testifying for the National Association of Social Workers. Oh, sorry, my video's on. Virginia chapter in support of this bill. I previously practiced in California and saw firsthand how exclusionary zoning limits and economic and educational opportunities for communities of color. As a result of California having allowed localities to zone out affordable housing, it became almost impossible for middle and lower income workers to find affordable places to live, and the state was forced to change its laws. Here in Virginia, we are starting to see the same issues in our most affluent areas. Passing this bill will help Virginia avoid the mess that California is now in. Thank you.
All right, no other speakers? Okay, all right, the bill is before us. All right, we got a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 13, no 0.
All right, that bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, House Bill 2140 from Delegate Guzman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
All right, proceed and present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I present to you House Bill 2140, a bill to increase the employment of individuals with disabilities in state agencies. Virginia right now is behind its goal to increase employment of individuals with disabilities in all levels of occupation within state agencies to 5%. Right now, it is 0.063%, and we are supposed to achieve the goal of 5% by 2023. The Center for Disease Control indicates that almost 1 in 5 Virginians has some type of disability, and the U.S. unemployment rate for disabled individuals is 11%, which is nearly double of the individuals without disability. I work in this issue, Mr. Chairman, on the House side for the past 3 years, and this year, in coordination with the Department of Human Resources and Management and DARS, I believe that we have found a pragmatic solution that does not impact the state budget. House Bill 2140 directs the Department of Human Resources and Management to coordinate with DARS and convene a group of stakeholders to establish an alternate application process for individuals with disabilities to gain temporary employment within state agencies. Agencies that hire under this process will have the option to convert those individuals to competitive services after they have completed their probationary period. This legislation seeks to mirror what happens right now at the federal government through the Schedule A program and give disabled individuals in Virginia an opportunity, an advantage in the hiring process. Additionally, the Department of Human Resource Management this bill calls for the Department of Human Resource and Management to include in their annual report information on the number of individuals who sought employment using this process, those who are currently employed, and those who were converted to competitive services. I believe this is a realistic solution to a very serious problem with individuals with disability face. I'm happy to report, Mr. Chairman, that this legislation has the support of the Disability Law Center, Arc of Virginia, Virginia APSE, the Virginia Board of People with Disabilities, and the National Federation of the Blind of Virginia. This is the first step for a better future for Virginians with disabilities, and it's time that more people with disabilities who have the sense of pride and dignity that comes with earning a paycheck through state employment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and members of the committee.
All right, are there questions for the patron? All right, are there people to
Yes,
speak on
Mr.
the bill?
Chair. We have Terry Morgan. Please go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Terry Morgan, the Executive Director of the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities. The Virginia Board supports a special hiring process for people with disabilities to join state government. In the Commonwealth and nationally, people with disabilities have higher rates of unemployment than people without disabilities. According to the American Community Survey, 43% of Virginians with disabilities were employed in 2019, compared to 80% of people without disabilities. This initiative with a non-competitive application is similar to the Federal Hiring Authority for People with Disabilities, referred to as Schedule A. The federal program has been very successful. The Government Accountability Office found that under federal Schedule A, agencies hired about 143,000 persons with disabilities from 2011 to 2015, exceeding the federal target of 100,000 people. Agencies made an additional 79,000 hires between 2016 and 2017. A similar initiative in Virginia would be a positive impact on increasing the rate of employment for people with disabilities, as well as setting an example for inclusive hiring and the benefits of a diverse and representative workforce. Thank you.
Matthew Shapiro, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Matthew Shapiro with Virginia APSE. We strongly support this legislation as we view it will be another avenue to help get people with disabilities employed within state agencies and give us an opportunity to reach that 5% goal that the delegate so eloquently stated.
All right, thank you.
Becky Bowers-Lanier, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I work with Matthew Shapiro, and I could not have said it better, and so I associate my remarks with his.
And our final speaker, Director Miller, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We support the bill.
Thank you. Is that it? All right, that's it. That's all the speakers. The bill is before us now.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion to report. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to report. Any discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 11, no 0.
All right, ayes 11, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right, next up we have Delegate Munden King, starting with House Bill 2170.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You can present the bill now.
Thank you. So House Bill 2170 comes to us from a JLARC recommendation for the Virginia Small Business Financing Authority. JLARC found that VSBFA was not systematically monitoring the financial status of businesses it had loaned money to. Staff expressed concern about the lack of monitoring because it was inconsistent with best practices and can make any bank more vulnerable to borrowers defaulting. So this bill would implement this recommendation to require VSBFA to conduct risk-based reviews of outstanding loans. The goal of the monitoring is to identify businesses who might be struggling and to proactively help them with accommodations that can be made. I'm happy to take any questions. It's a pretty straightforward bill, but I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
All right, are there questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
A question for the
Senator
patron. Is this your first bill before a Senate committee?
It is my second, Mr. Chair, I would respond that it is my second bill before a committee. I had my first about 10 minutes ago.
So, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question.
Yes.
Is this your first bill before General Laws and Technology Committee in the Senate?
Mr. Chair, I would respond that yes, that is true. It is my first bill in front of general laws
Okay.
in the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see my colleagues are taking notes.
All right. Are there other further questions for the patron? All right, is there anyone to speak on this?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand. I see no hands, Mr. Chair.
Move to report.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
All right, Senator Locke.
Are we sure we want to report this bill?
It seems risky.
Mr. Chairman, this might need to go to judicial.
Oh, that's cruel.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Senator Reeves.
question for the patron.
Certainly.
Line 13, it talks about a risk-based review. What is a risk-based review?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. A risk-based review is a review that is currently being conducted sporadically with the agency, but it looks at the finances of the business and the history of payment to see if there are any issues of payment, repayment, paying in a timely fashion. And this is very important as we recover from the pandemic, as we begin to recover, because there are small businesses who may start to lag in payments or pay payments a little later. And that is typically seen as a trend in that industry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very eloquent.
All right, are there further questions?
Mr. Chairman, that sounded like a lot of stuff about finance. So should this go to finance?
Has there been a request?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I can look again.
Mr. Chairman, one final question.
Yes, Senator McPike.
Does the delegate reside in Prince William?
Mr. Chair, I would say to the senator, yes, that is true. As a matter of fact, I live right across the street from his district.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is an outstanding bill and would second the motion to report the bill.
All right, if there are no further questions or comments, we'll vote on the board.
Hey, I will reconsider.
Vogel's not even here.
All right.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right, the bill is reported on a 12-0 vote with a strong rally at the end.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Quite an exciting time you have over here.
All right, we've had so much fun with the first bill. We'll take your second one now, 2171.
So 21, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I really do appreciate the support. So House Bill 2171 comes to us from JLARC, and you'll notice a theme here because small businesses are something that are very prevalent throughout the Commonwealth, and particularly in the 2nd District that I represent. So this bill comes to us because we found that the VSBFA was not using even 1/4 of its available loan funding to provide financing to small businesses. This was a real problem because the statutory mission is to provide financing to small businesses, especially to fill gaps in the private market for financing. So this would add to an existing reporting requirement for VSBFA to report the percentage of its total funding that has been utilized and awarded each year. It would implement a recommendation from JLARC, And it wouldn't totally fix the problem, but it is something that was noted by the U.S. Economic Development Administration in their most recent review of our financing authority, and it was something that was considered a weakness of the program. And again, I'm happy to take any questions on this proposal.
All right, are there questions for the patron on this bill?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is existing code with 120 days, but I'm assuming that you would want to try to find out this so we could have the ability then to try to use these unused loans. Is 120 days enough time to do that?
Mr. Chair, that is a very good question. And what this would do, I think that 120 days would be sufficient, and I believe that number was used because this would be reported in a manner that the VSBFA is currently already using. So this would be additional information that they would be required to provide in that report.
All right, are there any other questions for the patron? Yes. Okay. Do we have speakers?
I can check, Mr. If you'd like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand.
It's in pretty good shape.
I see no hands, Mr. Chair.
Move to report.
All right, we have a motion to report. Is there a second? All right, a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote on the board.
Ayes 12, noes 0.
All right, that bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
And going for the trifecta, House Bill 2172. So.
All right. So House Bill 2172 focuses on small women and minority-owned businesses and the certification process. Right now, the SBSD does not have a process for appeal for businesses that are denied that small women and minority-owned certification. And so what happens is an inequity where some businesses that are denied certification are allowed to appeal and some would not. So what this would do is it would create a process for that. And this would not increase the workload for the SBSD, and it will also not have a financial impact, but it would provide for businesses an equal process. And I see that this does have support from the small business community as well, who is available to speak to it as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions for the patron?
Mr. Chair, Senator Reeves.
Senator Reeves.
Delegate, I'm a little concerned about, where's the line? Line 59, when it says, and right above that, to appeal such denial on the basis that the department made a mistake in denying. Mistake is kind of a very broad term with regard, is it a spelling mistake? Is it something they left off? Is it any mistake? What are the grounds for the mistake?
So, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for that question. That was actually a question that I had as well. And one of the examples that I was given is businesses that may come in partnerships, and the partnerships have diverse backgrounds, male, female, different races and ethnicities, and perhaps along the application process that may have not been considered, that if, I'm a partner in the business or there's another partner who's of a different background, that all of that was one of the examples that I was given, but I'm definitely open to looking at if that is the correct terminology.
Mr. Chair, I understand thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand, Delegate, if you as the applicant made the mistake, but this is saying that the department made a mistake. Is that assuming they made the mistake by not rewarding it because they didn't know what your gender or sex or ethnicity is? I'm just trying to understand and narrowly defining that, because if it's the applicant's mistake, that's one thing. If you're saying the department made the mistake, I'm trying to just clarify it for those bureaucrats that are going to be taking these things in. What defines that mistake? Is it an address that's wrong? Is it an email that got wrong? Is there anything wrong on the form, or is there grace? I just think it's a very broad term. I don't know if there's a legally better term to use to allow some grace there for the department to come back and look without having to go through that process.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I would definitely be open to discussing and further looking into that, because it is certainly not my goal to create, more work or for those who are responsible for fulfilling this part of the work. So I'm definitely interested in that, and I don't want to, narrow it down to just the makeup of the partners of a particular business. Because I believe that the mistake, quote unquote, could encompass a number of things that may have been overlooked in the process.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Senator McPike.
I was going to say, if the agency's on the line, maybe they could respond to that more clearly if that works.
All right, is there someone from the agency that would be able to respond to that question?
If so, please raise your hand.
Nobody? Okay, nobody to respond on that one. All right, there's no one, is there nobody to speak, period, right? Okay. All right,
Mr. Chairman.
I believe we have one person in support here to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I'd be happy to work with the patron to try to figure out if we can work on it just a little bit, if she's receptive to doing that, and try to get some counsel on this to make sure we get it tight if we're going to change it. I foresee some issues coming in over the last 9 years I've been on this committee. We've worked really hard to narrowly define, especially this section of this code, because of the challenges with contracts. So if she's okay with that, I might have a floor amendment, but I want to work with her on it.
Mr. Chair, absolutely. I would welcome the senator's expertise and look forward to working with him on that piece.
All right, thank you.
Nicole Riley, please go ahead.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Nicole Riley with NFIB. We support the bill. We have had instances where we've had members who have been denied their SWAM certification, particularly on an initial claim, and that's where this is dealing with. And I think our understanding of the issue of the mistake by the department is where a mistake may be in the misinterpretation of, for instance, like a women business owned, the percentage that she may own that business, how much she operates daily and actually runs the business. Sometimes we've had instances where there's been misinterpretation there, and even conflict with how a business is set up through the SEC. And so again, we feel that this is a really good bill, and we certainly appreciate any ways to make it better. But we thank you for your support.
All right, any questions of the speaker? All right, anybody else speaking? Okay, all right. The bill is before us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd appreciate the delegates' work on this and Senator Reeves' work to tweak language if possible. I'd move we report the bill, and also note to Delegate King that she has NFIB supporting her bill as a freshman. So well done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much to you and members of the committee.
All right, there is a motion to report. Is there a second? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 11, no 0, 1 abstention.
All right, and Senator Reed, you'll be working with yeah. Okay, all right. And so we
Mr.
may-
Chairman?
Yes, we may have a,
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Aird communicated she's ready to come back if you're ready to hear.
all right, that sounds fine. All right, we will go back to Delegate Aird then on House Bill 2031.
Please unmute yourself, Delegate.
That would be nice. Great. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I just pick up where we left off?
Yes, please do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. In the time that we took to do additional assessment, we were able to categorize what Senator McPike was describing, which is largely utilizing biometric data for specific access to for entry and or databases. And biometric data is largely considered to be the use of retina, iris scan, fingerprints, voice prints, a record of a hand. And in the definition that we have before us in my legislation, it specifically refers to geometric facial data, which is entirely different than the examples and or the concern that Senator McPike has. And so in my opinion, and in checking with council and in verifying the differences between the biometric and the geometric, this would specifically apply to geometric facial data. And furthermore, in subsection B, where it references the specific purchase and deployment by law enforcement, this would not be applicable to a system or database used for entry. It would literally require the purchase and deployment of a database.
All right, and at line 16 is where there's reference there to the geometric facial data for an individual.
Mr. Chairman?
All right.
Yeah. Reading this about geometric, which is really pattern analysis, shape analysis, and uses multivariate statistics, which would have to be done on a database, I really think it's clarified it for me. That's a big difference between biometric, which is really looking at those human characteristics and storing them on a device. So I think the two are pretty different. I don't have any problems. I don't know if Senator McPike does, but I think that clarifies it for me, and I'm ready. I move to report, or we adopted the amendment, so report as amended.
Second. All right, a motion and a second to report as amended. Any further discussion? All right, well, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0.
Ayes 12, no 0. The bill is reported.
I thank the committee.
Certainly. All right, now picking up Delegate Jones, House Bill 2202.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This bill simply provides that an individual is not required to be certified as an elevator mechanic or accessibility mechanic when working under the direct and immediate supervision of an elevator mechanic or accessibility mechanic who is certified for that work. This just brings the elevator trade in line with the other building trades across the state, and I hope the committee will look favorably upon this piece of legislation.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right, is there anyone to testify?
If you'd like to speak to the bill, please raise your hand. I see no hands, Mr. Chair.
Report.
All right. Second. All right, we have a motion to report and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, well, we will vote on the bill.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right, ayes 12, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Delegate Hayes, 2222.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Let's see here. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you have before you 2222. And this bill, Mr. Chairman, is a measure to expand the population of veterans and the healthcare facilities that are able to participate in the Department of Veterans Services, Military Medics, and Corpsmen program. This will allow more participants of the program to provide a broader range of employment services to veterans and transitioning service members. It also will expand employment opportunities with new pathways. It allows the memorandums of agreements in place with major healthcare systems and state agencies to expand those opportunities and enable the program to connect a larger pool of skilled candidates to meet the current and evolving needs of our healthcare industry. Mr. Chair, I hope that it's the pleasure of the committee to report the bill.
All right, are there any questions for the patron?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just speaking in favor of the bill, as many of you remember, this bill came through several years ago when Admiral Harvey was still here and started this. This has been a very, very successful program in allowing those men and women that have served and wore the cloth of our country that delve in medical the realm to get out and actually have a job prior to even exiting the military. And this is a phenomenal bill. I wish I'd have known about it earlier so I could get onto it, but I appreciate the delegate bringing the bill.
All right. Anybody want to testify? Okay, we do have somebody who wishes to testify.
Claudia Flores, please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you. My name is Claudia Flores. I serve as the Director of Policy and Planning for the Virginia Department of Veterans Services. This is an agency bill, and we support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the speaker? All right, that's the only one. Okay. All right, the bill is before us now.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, let's vote on the board.
Ayes 12, no 0.
Ayes 12, no 0. The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
You're quite welcome. Next is Delegate McQuinn, House Bill 2249.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. House Bill 2249. Are you ready? Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, please proceed.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, first of all, I want to, I have a substitute and would ask that you adopt the substitute, that the committee would adopt the substitute.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion to adopt the substitute? Second. All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The substitute's before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the substitute makes technical corrections on the regulatory language relating to damage insurance. And otherwise, the substitute does what House Bill 2249 did as it passed through the House. The purpose of House Bill 2249 is to clarify provision related to damage insurance in the Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act. As we all know, this pandemic has put a lot of stress on tenants throughout the Commonwealth, as well as the landlord. And so this bill would allow tenants to obtain and use damage insurance as a form of security deposit when renting a unit from the landlord. The damage insurance can reduce the amount of upfront money required by the tenant as a security deposit. And there is an option for a tenant to pay a premium for a bond or insurance that can take place of the security deposit. This option gives more financial power to the tenant while also ensuring that the landlord have some comfort in the source of security deposit other than the money that's usually put up front. And so I hope it'll be the will of the body to pass the bill. We do have Chip Dick, who has been sitting there, who can speak further to the particular issue on House Bill 2249. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there questions of the patron? All right, are there speakers?
Chip Dix, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is a bill that was requested by the Northern Virginia Apartment Association, and Delegate Quinn has explained the bill well. And we've worked with the State Corporation Commission, with the Poverty Law Center, with the other landlord groups who I think are prepared to speak. I'm not aware that there's any opposition to this bill, but fundamentally, the way this bill works is that you can pay, say, a $200 damage insurance premium instead of having the tenant put up $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 security deposit, and it provides as much as $10,000 worth of damage coverage to the landlord. So it's a win-win all the way around. And again, what we're trying to do with this bill is to reduce the upfront money that a tenant would have to pay to be able to get into a dwelling unit. So I think there's consensus on that, and also the language. It's a long bill, but the technical changes have to go in a bunch of different code sections. So happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Reeves.
I'm sorry to ask a question, but I'm confused, and I sell insurance, and we don't sell damage insurance. So if Mr. Dix can clarify that, is that a commercial policy for the owner of the apartment complex? Or are you talking about an individual who is occupying an apartment as in renter's insurance?
So Mr. Chairman and Senator Reeves, there's a number of different products that are on the market, but primarily this is either a surety bond, which, as you know, is not licensed in Virginia, but would be approved in Virginia, or it is a surplus lines policy and not a standard policy. And primarily these are landlord programs. And there's 3 or 4 providers in the market that I'm aware of. And this has been the law. Actually, I helped write this law about 25 years ago, and it really hasn't taken off. And yet there are 3 new entrants that are willing to write damage insurance policies in Virginia for landlords. And generally what they would do is a landlord with a number of units, let's just say 10,000 units, would offer in all of their units to allow the tenant to substitute the damage insurance policy of the landlord instead of paying a security deposit. And that's basically the program.
Thank you, Mr. Dix. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
All right, is there anyone else to speak? Okay.
Brian Gordon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Brian Gordon on behalf of the Virginia Apartment and Management Association and the Apartment and Office Building Association. We support the bill as amended. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Christy Morrow. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Christy Morrow with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. We do support this legislation. We think it cleans up a number of things and will help this product be more widely available to residential tenants across Virginia. We hear all too often that tenants are not able to access the housing of their choice because they don't have the money for the upfront security deposit. And we're very hopeful that this will take care of that problem by lowering the upfront costs. And we thank Mr. Dix for working with us and Delegate McQuinn for introducing this legislation.
All right, that's all. Okay. All right, that's all the speakers. The bill's before us. All right, we have a motion and a second to report. Any further discussion? All right, we will vote on the board.
Ayes 10, noes 1, 1 abstention.
All right, ayes 10, noes 1, and 1 abstention. The bill is reported. All right, and then the other bill you have, Delegate McQuinn, is House Bill 2313.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, House Bill 2313, it's addition of Chief Workforce Development Advisor and the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to the definition of the Office of the Governor under the FOIA. The bill is one that I'm carrying for the Governor's Office. And what it does, it adds the position of Chief Workforce Development Advisor and the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to the definition of the Office of the Governor in the Code, where there are members of the Governor's cabinets are afforded the same protection under the working paper and the correspondence and that exemption under FOIA. Currently, these are the only 2 positions, from my understanding, that's in the Governor's office that are not given the exemption under the FOIA. And so it is being asked that they be added to the Governor's cabinet, and then they will be also given again the exemption under FOIA. I hope it be the will of the body to pass the bill. Jessica Killeen with the Governor's office is here to help us address any questions that may be in order. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any questions of the patron? All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Delegate McQuinn.
Yes.
I believe that Brett Vassey
sent you a proposed amendment. Did you get a chance to look at that?
No, sir, I haven't, Mr. Chair. No, I've not seen the amendments.
He proposed on lines 38, 39, working papers means those records prepared by or for a public official identified in this subdivision for his personal or deliberative use. And then he would add, except for those of the Chief Workforce Development Advisor and the Director of Diversity, of Equity, and Inclusion. I think that may have to do with some issues that people that might be hiring people may be less likely to communicate with the governor's office if they think it's foiable.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate.
Yes. May I get Jessica possibly to speak to this particular issue, please? I have not, Senator, I have not seen any amendments. I apologize,
Okay.
but I've not received those.
All right. Do you want to put Jessica on? Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Jessica Colleen, Deputy Counsel to Governor Northam, and we have not seen any amendments, so I'm not familiar with what the senator is speaking about.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate if this would go by for the day until we had an opportunity to see those amendments that have been prepared or submitted?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass by for the day. Without objection, we will pass it by for the day and take it up next week then.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. You all have a good evening.
All right. And House Bill 2308, Delegate Brewer.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Are you ready for me to proceed?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2308 is actually a bill that was brought forth by one of my local VFWs. This would allow a locality option for local VFWs or American Legions to ask for additional property tax exemption with proper usage in that locality. This would increase the acreage from 75, which is the current, to 200, but with also the locality extending the option first. Be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
All right. Are there questions of the patron? Any questions of the patron? All right. Are there any speakers on this bill? All right.
Phyllis Errico, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Brewer, Phyllis Errico with the Virginia Association of Counties, and we support the bill, and we wanted to thank Delegate Brewer for working with us to take care of what she was trying to accomplish and also allow the locality to be involved in these matters. So we support the bill. Thank you.
All right.
Our final speaker, Michelle Gowdy.
I'm Michelle Gowdy from the Virginia Municipal League, and I apologize for earlier. There was a lag between my screen and my phone, so I wasn't sure what bill you were on. But Delegate Brewer, we want to thank you for the amendment that you were kind enough to make for us, and we really appreciate what you've done, and we support the bill. So thank you.
All right. That's it, right? Okay.
Move to report.
All right. We have a motion to report. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right. We will vote on the board then.
Ayes 12, no 0.
All right. Ayes 12, no 0. That bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
You're quite welcome. All right. I think the only thing that we need to do now is go back and look at House Bill 1864. I think was the bill that was a motion to report the bill, and that motion failed on a 7-7 vote, and then we acted to pass it by for the day. But before acting to pass by for the day, we would need to reconsider the vote on the motion to report. And would need to have a motion from.
Mr. Chairman? I mean,
Yes.
just following up from other committees, if it fail, I mean, are we considering it a fail if it didn't pass or fail? Because in other committees, we've left it in the committee and it's been reconsidered later.
Right. Yeah, so we certainly could do that, but I just want to make sure that we're proper here, that
Okay.
take that action to reconsider the vote, or the action by which we pass by for the day, and then let that action stay there as a 7-7 vote, but it would still be a bill within the committee. So does anyone want to make a motion?
Anyone do it, Mr. Chairman?
Well, first we would have to consider the action by which we pass by for the day, and I think that nobody objected, so therefore anybody could make that motion to reconsider the action to vote to pass by the. All right. And we will vote on the board on that. Is that what we need to do? To reconsider?
Either or, getting that is the preference of the chair. Mr. Chair, either way, by voice vote or not.
All right, well, we can do this one by voice. Let's do this one by voice vote. This will be a vote to reconsider the action by which we passed it by for the day. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, that is to be reconsidered. And then we could have a motion to reconsider the vote the vote on the motion to report the bill, but we don't have to have that. We could just leave it in the committee and consider it again at another time. But on that, we would have to have someone who voted no on that motion to have that reconsideration. All right, well, if there's no one who's making a motion to reconsider, then we'll just leave that in the committee for now, and we'll deal with it, I guess, next week then, so. All right.
This was all our bills we have, or do we set more that are still coming?
They're not still coming, they're already in. This was only half of the bills. So, because we're only going to have 2 meetings, it's today and next Wednesday, and so I put just right about half of the bills on the docket for today, and we'll do the rest of them next week then. All right, with that, we will adjourn now and reconvene